Yeah, I just want to make sure I have it up. Okay, that should be good.
Time to,
That's why it's crooked.
time to spam the world with the links.
Let me make sure that I have those. That pulled up. Pulled up. Oh my god, this video is vertical. That's cursed.
Yeah. That's, so many of them.
Really? Just because people are posting like for like TikTok and shit.
Yeah. Yeah, it is what it is. Like, gloving on, when you glove vertical too, it, like, changes everything, you know? Like, it changes the way that you glove. Like, you're confined to that smaller space, but
Yeah, you're stuck in this frame rather than like it. People are used to having like this, but not this.
yes, exactly. And then, like, how do you say? People get mad, like, when you go off screen, like, more than the like people who are like who don't know anything about gloving, and then they'll watch you glove in the vertical frame. They hate it. Like, you should be going in the middle of the screen and, like, not leave the screen at all. You know what I mean?
Crazy.
I've started gloving
People are
vertical
so weird.
for Facebook too, because ain't nobody turning their phone sideways. You know, one of the videos that I uploaded on GL Scott, the one where I was at an event, that, like, that popped the fuck off, and I'm like, and I was wondering, like, okay, yeah, maybe it's because of an event show, but maybe it's because it's vertical, because, like, the people, like, I would assume that that mindset, it goes everywhere. Like, that mindset is everywhere now. It probably affected the way that people watch GL, because it's like,
True.
you know, like, vertical. Like, yeah, let me watch that light show that's vertical. I have no, like, basis on this. I'm just estimating, but
I
yeah,
mean, it's easier to like, just like be on your phone and scroll and then sit there and watch a video rather than like pulling it up and then having to turn your phone
yeah,
sideways and like set it up. And I,
yeah,
people, I think everyone subconsciously, like the way the world has progressed, like people value every second of the day. So like any
yeah.
extra time they have to take to like do
That
something
one
like that is
second.
probably, hey man, that's why Amazing Lights got rid of their intro forever ago, right?
Yeah,
I remember when Andy came to me and he was like, "Yeah, we gotta stop doing the 10-second like Amazing Lights Dankhead intro because we're
yeah.
losing viewership on it."
Yeah, dude, you know, I'll sometimes, like, analyze my my just wife scroll TikTok. We got married yesterday. Um, but sometimes, like, I'll see her scrolling through TikTok, right? And then she'll stumble upon a Glover, and bro, the amount of time it takes for her to swipe on the Glover is the fastest compared to all the other content. So I was like, wait, there's something going on here. There's something psychological going on here. And maybe it's because it's the room, and, like, she knows them, and she knows the room, and she knows, like, what that person is doing.
Right.
Maybe she just genuinely sees a light and she's like, oh, swipe. You know what I mean? But then I'm like, yo, like, you swiped on that Glover hella fast. And there's something happening there. That's a big
Yeah.
clue to me. To me, that was a big clue, because I was like, okay, maybe that, chances are she's not the only one doing that, right? But
Yeah, right.
anyway, yeah, we're kind of we could go into a long.
I know, I know,
This
I
could be
know.
a whole fucking thing. But yeah, guys, everybody who just joined us, thank you so much for joining. Yeah, it's a special stream today. Vex and I are gonna be watching a couple submissions that some of y'all sent to us, and yeah, we're gonna be very critical. Okay, we're gonna be very critical on them. And, you know, like I said, if you can't take critique, then don't submit. And on the stream, I do have a QR code. So if you are interested in having Vex and I take a look at your show, let us go ahead, scan that QR code. It is only $10. This is a limited offer. We're not going to be doing this every single time. Maybe we'll do some in the future. Who knows? But do it while you can. But right now we got 4. So, let's go ahead and take a look at that first one. What we're going to do, okay? What we're going to do is we're going to watch the submission once, go have a little commentary on it, then we'll comment on some other key aspects of it, all right? And so, yeah, I'll go ahead and watch the very first one. We've got Tylo. And Tylo, he's a hot one right now. Or, well, last week. 500 plus likes on that video. That's crazy, bro. The last time I seen a 500 like video, freaking forever. So,
okay, so is that
Tylo's?
Is that our vertical?
Is Tylo? No, I don't think Tylo's one is vertical. I think Scott's one is vertical.
Do I not have the link to this one?
No, I sent it over. It's the very first one.
Okay. I see.
Yeah.
I see. So we're probably gonna have to sync our starts because the stream on my end's a little bit slow. So
yep. No worries. Right. Okay, let me go ahead.
So I'm gonna shut the camera off for now, just so we don't lose anything.
Roger that.
All right, I'm ready when you are.
Let me take out this QR code real quick. Okay. All right. 3, 2, 1, go.
Interesting start.
Yeah, he's got the lights on the bottom. Obviously, Tylo's really one of the people pushing the envelope for tech conjuring. Placement on the thumb earlier was could have been way better. Like right here, the placement on the thumb, it's got to be perfect every single time.
Logic.
The logic, yeah, and that's a complexity with this style, is getting that logic with all the lights on the bottom, dude.
Yeah, it's very difficult.
Yeah. That change there was pretty nasty.
Yeah, I like that.
Wow, he like clicked everything through the compression wave.
Yeah. So, a little bit of not finishing that roll.
Yeah, the rolls can be a little bit difficult with this setup. A little bit of shakes here. I wish he was closer already.
Yeah, the depth could use a little work. That's a really cool move right there, playing with that single light.
I have a really big suggestion, but I think it's something that we'll talk about after the show. Placement on the thumbs again. Those placement on the thumbs are a big distractor.
Okay, we can see getting lost a little bit in the clicks there.
Yeah, there you kind of have to get ready for it, for those clicks in that certain thing. I almost feel like, okay, I almost feel like knowing when the clicks happen is actually like versus like overlaying the music. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like maybe that definitely. There's a discussion there. The placement on the cluster at the end there was not completed. It feels like more placement, if anything. There's a little bit of a stiffness in there, in that rotation.
Okay. A little bit of an awkward pause before that.
Is it the awkward pause to set up like a little shake into the musicality?
Yeah, I feel like there could be more done with it.
That was pretty fucking nasty. Like, when the hell did that all turn white?
A little bit of an awkward dial position.
Well, interesting. The pointer changing to pink. I'm not sure if it quite works in that position. And here, there's, the connectivity with those finger tuts need to be closer. So he'll do a couple air tracing, right?
Yes.
Hmm. These are. I wonder. Okay. These are all really clean, and for the most part, filler. I wonder if there's a more higher value way of doing filler. That was pretty freaking good. Pretty nuts. Let me know when you turn your camera back on. But immediately, okay, so immediately I think that the placements in. Wait, Jacob, you there?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay. Immediately, I feel like Tao's placements could use a lot of work, but you're kind of like at that. It's kind of hard because of the light placements, right? So like this is a really like tough decision, but there comes sacrifice within this whole style, right? There's
Yes.
there's there's a sacrifice no matter what, because the light to light contact is so risky and it's so hard. Like, and I don't know if Tyler ever ends up like joining up like a competition or whatever, right? But let's just say this, okay? If you're gonna be doing that style, right, execution is probably gonna be your worst enemy simply because of light placements, right? Because most people aren't gonna, most people can appreciate what you're doing, the level of technicality, but the truth is that the light placements play a big factor in your your presentation, your execution, that it's too hard to unsee, to make be like, oh yo, that the conjuring is that high level, let me just give it to him because of the conjuring high level. No, the fact is that there are plenty of bad placements when you do when you have connections, okay? And then comes the level, and then you have to like put into perspective like the and this is only specifically for competitions, okay? This is only specifically
Yeah.
for competitions. If it's just a general thing, then really good, but still, the placements need to be like even more pristine.
Yep.
Pristine, okay? And then so like just kind of a mindset, right, as a judge, is it's hard to unsee that stuff compared to someone who's doing a more simpler show that has perfect execution, because you're sacrificing complexity for cleanliness.
Yep.
And most times, if you're not pristine all the time in cleanliness, you're probably not going to win. And that's the weakness within that style, only within a competition setting. Only within a competition setting.
Yeah, I think when it comes to having your lights on the bottom, right, it it like subconsciously activates this perspective that all of a sudden, because things are already weird, like to see, right? Because we're so used to seeing lights on the tops of our fingers, right? When you see lights on the bottom, since not as many people conjure and have that kind of southpaw style, um, it like activates your brain to automatically start looking for the problems, and then that execution starts to stick out far more than someone who
Yes.
might be slightly messing up just with their lights on top.
Yes, yeah, that is a great way of putting it. It's like when you're in like a, this is only specific for competition. I'm gonna say that one more time. But
Mm.
when you're, I feel like when you're in that mindset, you're looking. It's easier to spot the execution errors or the placement errors rather than just the complexity of it all. Right? You're not gonna see someone who's at that top level caliber. Like if you mess up, that's like a big stain. And I know many of you guys have
Oh,
heard me say this many times, but if you have multiple stains, then it's really hard to unsee the placements, right?
I mean,
It,
I'd say think about it like a white shirt, right? The second that you drop a piece of food on it, like
ketchup.
some people, yeah, ketchup, right? It's like, oh, I can't wear that shirt anymore because now that's all people are going to see is that ketchup
Yes,
stain on my white
right,
shirt.
right. And so I'm gonna go ahead and switch over to Talo's video. I'm gonna go ahead and
Lights on
mute.
the
I'm just gonna
side.
go through it. Yeah, yeah. Lights on the side is I mean, it's an interesting
Side of the palm we've seen.
side of the palm we've seen. Lights on the side, I think I actually thought about that this morning, but I'm not sure. Maybe I don't know. I think it's even more of a risk. Like what? Like right here,
Oh,
I'm
it's
on stream.
crazy.
I'm on stream right now, and like these are all really good. And I think Tyler goes slow because he knows this. Because he knows that his pristine, like his placements have to be pristine. Like if I were to give like a percentage on how like how clean this is, I would probably give like, I don't know, probably like a 75 for the most part.
So
Like,
let's let's say it on a scale of 10, just like it's a scorecard,
Yeah,
right?
like a 7
So you're saying like
probably.
a 7?
Yeah,
Yeah.
which
I
is
think that's
really
where my
good.
head was at.
Which is
Yeah,
really
yeah,
good for
absolutely.
Conjuring. Okay, which is really good for Conjuring, but the fact that we have to say for Conjuring, that's a problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It has to be pristine all the time, no matter what, and especially with things like as future as like Conjure Tech, bro. I mean, that's a thing, okay?
Yes.
So like when you're doing like high caliber, this is extremely high caliber. Like the concepts of it all. Like
Agreed.
you're gonna have to get to a point, and this is just generally speaking, right? Like you have to get to a point, like if you're like where you're working extra hard for the cleanliness for things like Conjure Tech, bro. Who else is doing Conjure Tech at this caliber, right? Not many
Not
people
many
are
people.
people doing this. So this is basically future as fuck. But this placement right here, like that placement right here is yeah, like that's like the ketchup stain, right? Like it's got to be like tip to tip, not
So
not nail to light.
so Kevin, when we're doing these playbacks, I need you to just give me like a timestamp. That way I
Oh,
can be
for
on the
sure.
same page with you.
Yeah, no problem. I'm at 16.
Okay.
Yep, 16.
Okay.
Um yeah, that's the
Yes. Okay. Yeah, this pinch into the thumb.
yep. Oh, there was a part here at around I love the way that he has like different, how do you say it? I just paused. He has like different finger to different finger conjures, which I think is
Hmm.
very high level. Like different because like okay, like intermediate or like beginner to intermediate, it's usually like pointer to pointer conjures, right? So like, pointer, throw it up, turn off, turn on, pointer to pointer. But conjures within every single finger, like done intentfully, that's freaking like if you're chaining it up to, that's high level, right? And I could
Yeah, and
see the complexity in it because like just having to physically press the light, like that's its own level of
it's a dexterity.
it's
It's a
dexterity.
dexterity check,
Yes,
you know?
dexterity check.
And I will say, as a as a positive note for all the things we're saying, I really like the integration of like color theory play where he's got like this white set with the pink pointers, and he's like specifically using them for different things, and like having these pointers be this guide while then bringing it into this whole white set for the rest of it, and it kind of like the pink gives that illumination to the rest of the set. I think it was a really good idea.
Yeah, it's very creative, right? And I'm just gonna go ahead. There was this point where, oh man, where was it? I think it was around like 31. The way that, and I'm talking about just about like the movement and the forms, like around like maybe 40 seconds. So he does like this move, okay, where he has like, yeah, around like 40 46 ish, he has that crazy conjure tech form. I think like at around like, let's say I'm pausing at 47.
Okay, let me get.
Yeah, look at that form at 47.
Yeah, this form I had a little bit of issue with.
How come?
Okay, so we can see the pinky bent in, and it's at a weird bend. I would
It's at a
have really
45.
liked to see. Well, it's at a 45, but it's almost like his first knuckle, right? Like here is kind of like it's like bent a little bit. And
Yeah.
I think that was like on account of this being a difficult position to get into, like mid show, and him not feeling maybe entirely comfortable with this angle yet, as you can see his middle finger, it's not falling in line with the base of the pointer finger, right? Like when you have this angle right here, it's really going to change the perspective if this line on the pointer finger is kind of not in line with the middle finger all the way. You see how
Hmm.
that middle finger is kind of like up towards the middle of
Yes.
the second
Oh,
knuckle,
you're saying that
right?
row, right? Yeah, that row, that middle
Right.
is like
This
kind of a
needs to
little
be
bit up.
straight,
Oh,
and it's
that's
kind of here.
holy crap, bro. That's like hella nitpicky. But we need that, yeah. No, but yeah, no, it definitely plays into like How and maybe it's because like I don't know if it's like a genetic thing, right? But
It's
like
possible.
look at like the because the light is on the bottom, he has like that diagonal like this diagonal form. Um and I kind of like it though. You know what I mean? I kind of like it. But it's
Okay.
not completely like
So
straight. I want to see like how does he actually use it? But is it because we're in the movement?
I think it's because it's like not held there long enough.
Yeah, and there's like a little bit of shakes. There's like actually a little bit of shakes when he does the compression there. So like I would say to just grind this specific compression in this form over and over and over. Just that
Yes.
specific form over and over and over. I was gonna suggest that when we're in this form, and especially for like conjuring, okay, like what's very special, I think about conjuring is that you could play more into illumination concepts where like
Hmm.
when you have like this form right with this what was he doing, he was actually doing more like that, right? And it's not like this where it's completely straight
Yeah, it's
to the
kind of
camera
like a
like that, yeah. So
it's
like
like a fan,
yeah,
I think.
so
It's kind of like a
there's it's
fan.
like a fan, yeah. Am I doing it properly?
So middle finger out straight, and then these your pinky and your ring are kind of like at a Y. Like you're bending your pinky all the way. I don't think he's intending to bend the
Oh,
pinky
he's
all the
like
way. I
that,
think it's
yeah.
kind of
It
like
should
a
be like this.
fan.
Yeah. There's like there's I would suggest to play with the illumination. If you can get into to this form, like let me show. I think this is very like underrated. Like you don't see a lot of illumination in tech forms with conjuring. Where like if you're in the form, okay, but like you play with that like the illumination of the form and then you change, right? So if you like conjure, conjure, right? And then you play with the illumination of showing what part of the palm is lit up. Because you can kind of see that like there if I'm closer on contact, there's like a small dot, right? But then when I'm wider, you see how it expands. So you're playing with literally the shape of the light. You're shaping the light. And
Yeah,
it becomes really interesting when you have like tech forms like that, and that's something you don't really see often. So,
definitely
um,
not. I think that's a great ad. You know, I
a
think there's a
tool,
just so much you could do with it, right? Because it applies to any concept, any form, any shape that you're
and
using.
it works really well with just one light because so in film, right, shadows are just as important as light. Like when you're lighting something, you're not just blasting it with light. No, like you want shadows, you want contrast, you want that dark. Right, the darks are as equally as important as the light. So that's something that you won't see with like a full-handed lights are all on because everything is illuminating everything, right? And so like it's hard to do that with like 5 or 10 lights rather. But if you have like one light on and then everything off, then it's easier to do it within different shapes and forms of the finger. But
You
anyway,
lose the impact of it when you
you
have
lose
all
the
of your lights
impact.
on.
Absolutely. Let's see. Um, I'm just kind of going through it right now. Yeah, so look at the sequence from 52, 52 to 54. 52 to 54. Are you replaying that on your end?
Yeah.
You see how like he goes into the cluster form and then he has to like sit back? You see how he sit backs and repositions?
Yeah, he repositions his whole body,
Why?
arms and all.
You see what I'm
Well,
saying? It's that
I
setup that setup is not clean. It's the setup into it's because he's repositioning his body, right? He's probably I don't know if he's sitting
well, yeah,
down or kneeling.
when no, when you go to 51, like 52, you can see that he's kind of in this position where he's almost diagonal to the camera because he wants to have that hand that's doing the fan be the main focus.
Yeah.
And it when he's repositioning, I think I think you're right. It is probably because he's on his knees or sitting down on something. that it kind of just makes that transition very, very apparent of his body versus if he were standing, it's a lot easier to move your body while isolating your hands.
Right.
And I think that's the other thing, right? We see a little bit of there's a lack of isolation in his hands and the form that he's trying to present,
Yeah.
and that's why it moves with all of his body, and then it sticks out
Yeah.
because you're seeing it move at the same rate that his body is.
Look at 54 to 55. You see how he does this extra pulse to be like, "Yo guys, this is what I'm trying to do. This is the
This is the
form.
shape that's
This is the
locked in.
yeah." So
Yeah.
that is a symptom of musicality in my opinion. Or like you're trying to get on track with the music. Like, I mean, I'm actually going to turn on to actually it's like boom boom bap. Yeah, see he's catching up with the music. Bap, right? So there's a musicality problem here. And maybe it's because it's so technical and he has to emphasize the cluster form and he has to do that bounce. I know this bounce all too well. I do this bounce myself before. Like, so there's oh man, it's so tough. I mean, you have like this crazy form, you're in your setup, but then you add that extra bounce to be like, okay guys, I'm done with the setup. Here's the sequence. Like it
Well,
needs to be. Sorry, go ahead.
no, no, no. Go ahead. Finish what you're saying.
No, it needs to be the transition is the setup to the sequence. Like you're doing your like if you're going into like this position, right? And then you're like, it's kind of weird. You know what I'm saying? It's like an extra step because you're trying to like catch up with musicality.
So I'm somewhat speculating, but I think what it is this position that he was in prior. Um, sorry, like
Yeah.
this position that he's in prior. It's such a mental strain if you haven't drilled this type of position like thousands of times that I think when he's in the midst of the transition into that kind of cluster, and I'm not entirely sure what the cluster is. It's kind of like a, and I'm sure you've experienced this at some point in your gloving. When you come up with a new move and you want to kind of put it out there or put it into a video, you're thinking more about the move than the music. And then
Yeah.
once you're kind of out of that move, it's like all of the music comes rushing back to you.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
you are
Yes.
playing that catch up game, like you were
Yes.
saying.
Yes. 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 And I think that kind of leaves like that's a great segue to I think one of the biggest problems in the show is the musicality. There was basically
Yeah.
like I mean the pacing was good,
Yes, it was.
right? Like you're pretty much the pacing is there and like the vibe of it pretty matches, but I feel like there like look at this. Actually, I'll give that to him. I don't know. Like, I feel like the lyrics are kind of lost. Right? He's kind of in this slow flow, and like I'm listening to the clicks to the music, and I feel like they don't
Yeah.
match. I feel like the clicks could be to the music. You know what I'm saying? Like, because like,
Agreed.
is it the musicality within the clicks, or like because the move is the conjure? So then that means that the move is to the conjure's to the beat, but it's not on the beat, is it? It's kind of hard to tell, or kind of hard to hear. Yeah, like it kind of is like off. Like I can't tell if the click is to the beat. And
Right.
this is what I wanted to say earlier. It was like, do you think that it is probably it's kind of like anti-meta, but like, do you think it's more uh beneficial for him to not overlay the music so you can hear the clicks? Because like when you hear the clicks, I think as a Glover, there's actually something a lot more uh interesting, yeah,
Impressive.
impressive about it. You know what I mean? Rather than not hearing the clicks.
I think that's a case by case basis, right? Because I think the clicks also kind of diminish some of the illusion, right? Because it's like you
Yeah,
hear the
yeah,
click, you know it's coming. You may not know exactly which fingers he's clicking, but it's almost like you're now anticipating to see either light or no light as
yeah.
soon
It's
as
a
you hear the
tough one.
click.
Yeah,
So it's like, yes, it's impressive to hear the clicks, especially when someone's clicking, multiple lights at a time. You're like, holy shit, that must be extremely difficult, and it is. But at the same time, is it worth risking losing someone's interest because of the fact that they are now dialed into exactly what you're doing and there is no surprise factor? And I feel like a lot of Conjuring, not entirely, but it does rely on that kind of like, you didn't expect this to happen.
Yeah, it's almost kind of like the. I mean, well, yeah. I mean, you get that a lot through like impacting, right? It's like you don't expect
Yes.
that. Yeah,
Yes.
that's a really interesting um, point where it's like the as an audience, it's like you when you see a conjure, it's like okay, you kind of expect some of the clicks here and there. Like it's like you kind of lose that sense of, especially when you've watched Chloe for a long time. You sometimes lose that sense of excitement, especially when the conjures are pretty much the same conjures you've seen all the time. But that's a
Yes.
different point. But I think I think in the fashion that Tyler is doing it, it's not really in that fashion because he's doing like really interesting forms. At least
That's
for
fair.
me, you know? Um but like I mean again, like even at this part, look at like one. Okay, no, that's good. That's good. It's 124. Yeah, like 125. 125, bro. This is right here. This placement right here. Boom. The thumbs. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
you just like you all that effort in the tech conjures, but you have this placement. It's all out the window already. You
And
know?
we kind of get like, and this is even a little bit more nitpicky, but just the placement of the fist, right? Like you have his right hand where you can almost see the
Yeah.
majority of his fingers, and it's almost like fully facing you, and then you have his left hand, which is kind of like pointed towards the ground, and he gets kind of caught up in this position where his
Yeah.
knuckles are touching on his pointer fingers, but the entirety of the shape is non-symmetrical.
Yeah.
And I think that takes away from just the feeling of, there's like a certain satisfaction that I think a lot of Glovers get, and I get myself when watching a show and everything just lines up.
Right,
All the
right, right.
forms, all the shapes,
Everything perfect.
when you have your hands like this and like one thumb isn't like off, like that type of minutia and detail can really make or break, I think, someone's feelings about how good or how bad a light show really is. And having that be such a center point of like, he's right here in your face, and like this fist is kind of pointing at the ground and this fist is
Yeah.
kind of pointing towards you, like
Yeah.
it breaks that like trance that you can be in when you're lost
Yeah.
in a really good light show.
Right. And I feel like just gloving more to the camera is a good way of helping that. I mean, having a center point. I think what's actually happening as well is he's floating a lot, and
Yeah.
that's kind of like a big part of his style is that slow tech, the tech conjures, but then like having it still match with the music. There's still a bit of floating in some of his movements because he's trying to do the click like right here. Like it's not that bad, but you'll see it in some cases. Here, this is cool. This is really cool. Like here with the whip like more could be doing that illumination concept with the whip, but like here when he goes into the whips here, I'm just playing through 144.
Yeah, I'm letting you play. I'm kind of at the whip section right now.
Yes, the completion here at 150, 150. Oh shoot, where is it? All right, there. Completion at 201. 2 minutes to 201. He gets into like this box. He didn't complete the box yet. Boom, boom, bat right there. Like it's very in and out. Like there isn't a
Oh yeah.
like right there. Like I didn't get to see the box yet, and this is
He's kind of in this
it's a symptom
box.
of the floaty esque type style. But uh, he has the dexterity though. You know, he has the
Yeah,
dexterity to get into some pretty crazy forms.
it definitely
Um,
seems like it. So one other thing I want to talk about that I see, especially in watching the show, and this could just be a symptom of the positioning that he was in, or just being, I guess, more uncomfortable going to the camera. I don't know how often he records or how often he's throwing to a camera, but and this is a symptom that I see in lots of glovers. I feel like it seems like he has, long arms, right? But
yeah.
we're kind of always gloving like on our chest, and it's like that the symptom of like I glove a lot to myself, and like I'm always looking at my own hands, so I want my hands to be close to me.
Oh, I think
But
your camera shut off.
oh, okay, let's get that back on.
Yeah, he is pretty in that mid area in terms of depth, like a lot of the time.
And yeah, and I just feel like there's such a loss of depth that could be used, and such a loss of like space that could be used when you're pigeon toeing yourself to being on your chest or being in this kind of like mid range. Like I want to see his arms extended all the way, especially when he's doing like those
Yeah.
cluster
Oh,
combinations and stuff.
yeah.
Like there would be so much more room for him to work with, and so many more concepts to add in if he's using that full arm length extension and then
Mm,
being able to also bring it back in, right? That form that we talked about with this kind of like fan that's going on, right? Like that, I understand it being close to your body because of the nature of the move,
yeah.
right? But as soon as he gets into that cluster combination, it should be arms out.
Right,
It should
right,
be
right.
it should be spread in your face. And I know you said this when we were watching, right? Like you already had wished he was closer to the camera at that point. And I think that's a symptom of having that kind of like it's almost like a safe space that you're gloving in.
Yeah, 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 yeah. In terms of like, yeah, I actually had a conversation about this a while back, but then like there's like this and then there's like that and there's like it's
Yes.
a totally different vibe and that does play into
Yes.
use of space, right? And I would imagine that Conjuring like usually actually wait, Conjuring is very it's very far usually. Like traditional Conjuring is
Yeah.
very far, but he's kind of taken the different approach where because it's tech Conjuring, he kind of has to go close. So now it's just combining adding every level of depth, right? That's probably gonna add more to his illusions, like doing different tech conjures from like even at the arm,
Yeah,
like
that's
this is a
yes.
possibility, right? Like, and it's trippy
Yes.
because you have this whole length versus and it's you don't have as much space to work with, and
Yeah.
it's a whole showmanship aspect, but. Yeah, I think we spent a lot of time on Talos show. Pretty much just the placements, maybe working with some illumination, some of the shakier forms, right? It's got to work on the shakier forms, and I think the musicality aspect, um, all definitely needs some improvement. But yeah, very who I don't even know anyone else who's like on that level of tech conjuring. I'll be completely honest. Really good, really good. Okay, so next we got
While we're swapping over, hi everybody. Glad you're here. Thank
yes,
you for
sir.
showing up.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for showing up, everybody. We've got the King of Future Bass, bro. Oh,
Uh-oh.
we got Zug
Heavy hitter.
Zwang. We got the big boy in here. Let's go.
All right. Whenever you're ready.
Okay. All right. Three, two, one. Oh wait, sorry. Start all over. Let me go ahead and take off the Venmo stuff real quick. Okay, ready?
Hold on.
Three. You ready?
All right. Go ahead. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Three, two, one.
I want to say I've been really impressed with this gentleman.
Yeah, he's very unique. Oh, straight business. so balanced. Kind of broke off there. Not sure if I like
Yeah.
that illusion.
The grid works a little questionable there.
I think essence of the song here is not matching. Like that
Agreed.
setup was dope. There's like a shakiness to the song that he's not really catching right now.
Oh man. Video's not loading for whatever reason. Okay. We're probably gonna be off on this now, but
okay, no worries, no worries. Yo, that depth with the platform there, really good, really controlled. I have a lot of things that I could that I would suggest to for this song.
Yeah, I think this is it's a difficult song, especially for his style.
Wow, very unique head liquid there. Oh, there we go. We got a little bit of the shakes. He needs more connection on those tuts. Those tuts are not connecting right now. He's cheating it. Oh, the setup into that tut was not the cleanest. We got like a mix up. What happened to
Oh
the
yeah,
song?
I'm seeing these tuts. Yeah.
I mean, when he gets into like the closer stuff, like the digits or like the pinches, they're like really pristine, like with his placements.
Oh, without a doubt.
Oh, pointers there need to connect. Logic there, very, very, just like by an atom. There are only a couple places where the logic falls apart, but it's like really good. Like 90%, 95% maybe. Like, I like how the... Like, is this the same song?
Yeah, it hit quite a tempo and sound change.
There we go. Pretty damn good. Okay. Let me know when you've when you're recovered.
Yes.
And let me know when your cam's on.
Yep. Okay. All right. So I'm out of it. So I think actually my issue was I pulled the stream up on my phone that way I can still have chat open so I can see what everyone's saying.
Yeah.
But I think having the stream open and then also trying to watch videos on YouTube was killing me. Like it was causing it to lag a lot.
I see.
As soon as I closed the stream, it was crisp. So
Yeah.
I'm glad I could see it all.
Yeah. What do you think?
I mean, it was a very impressive show. I think there are definitely a lot of crutches that are used in terms of connections and certain angles that he was hitting. Especially with the tutting, right? You commented on it while it was happening. I saw it a couple seconds later. There were definitely some major missteps as far as placement of hands, fingers, and just how he was trying to transition through them. But that being said, there was a lot of, he has this very similar into the first show we watched. He has this very slow approach, like methodical flow. And I think it's really cool, but I also wish that there was that juxtaposition. Like I would like to see the speed as well, especially for a
That
song
was the
like
biggest
this.
thing that I was gonna say. Yeah, actually, I think that like Zuggs is like resistant, like with his tech.
Yes.
It's more within that like slower, like heavier kind of realm, especially with like the smaller stuff, like everything. There's a slow resistance sometimes that I think is usually fitting, but when it's go time, it's not fitting. And then so
Right.
like one thing that he doesn't do that I think will like literally take him to like the next level are speed illusions. And
Mm.
you don't usually like hear this term a lot, but I'm using it right now. So speed illusions to blend certain moves or use as a transition to get to like places you normally wouldn't. Like literally like just using the sides, like you could use your peripherals like that, and even though that's not like as perfect logical, the speed within the trail to transition, so you get into like it's a different texture, right? The
Yes.
textures that Zuggs is using every single time is the same. It's the same texture.
Yes.
And when you're used to the same speeds and the same texture, sometimes it can get boring. Not saying that Zuggs shows are boring by any means,
No.
but it
No.
sometimes it gets what's the right word? You know what's coming.
Yeah, it's
It's
expected.
expected. Like I know what the illusion is gonna look like at that hit. So, and this comes through like limit testing, right? This
Yeah.
comes through like I'm not sure where Zuggs is right now in his journey, right? I think in the journey of like a Glover, there's like okay, you learn everything, you learn the basics, the foundations. Then it's like you get to a point where you're trying to develop and find your own style, right? I think that
Yes.
maybe that's in terms of finding your own style, that's where Zuggs is right now. Maybe he found his style, and maybe that's what he prefers, right?
Yeah. Nothing
But
wrong with
like
that.
then there's like okay, like that's like slow resistance Zugzwang. What about fast resistance Zugzwang? What is fast Zug? What skin is Zuggs using today? Like the different type of feeling, right? That's how I think that's how you improve yourself as like an artist, right? And I say this many times, like a good times, like a good director, right? Maybe this director is really good at making horror films, but
Hmm.
that's all they're good at doing is horror films. Like a good
Right.
director knows how to make a movie on like drama, suspense, like drama, suspense, horror, like action. Like a good director knows how to put themselves in the minds of like different stories, right? But I feel like with Zuggs, finding that like that speed aspect, I think is missing, just by a little bit, you know?
Agree. Agreed. I think there, and I think that it's funny. You actually had like somewhat of an opposite um, come up
Yeah,
in your light shows,
yeah,
right? Because when I first met you and started seeing your videos, you had a lot of this very slow, methodical tech that you would go through,
yeah,
and at some, I think during the first like GMO and stuff, you had this very like resistance,
yeah.
like behind all of your moves, and I think people are aware now. I mean, you can go fucking light speed. Excuse my
Yeah,
language.
you can go light speed.
um,
Yeah,
um,
I think some part of that is like part of that is like the part like the community, like the culture, right? Like I like usually it's very it's looked down upon if you're fast because you're probably not clean, right?
yeah, that's fair.
But the thing, right? The thing, and we've said this before, right? Some if you can't do it fast, then you can't do it slow, right? But
Yeah,
if you can't do it fast, you can't do it fast. Like,
that's true.
so it's like I would just, and this is just a suggestion. I feel like, right? This is just like an opinion. Is for like to see that faster Zuggs, that zoomy part of Zuggs. That would just add so much more dynamic to his shows rather
I, and I
than yeah,
well, and I think it's like it's not something that even needs to be like him completely changing his style, where like all of his tech is now done like at 50% faster than it normally is. But I think, and it goes back kind of to where you were talking about texture, like even just like when you're changing like angles with tutting, like boom, boom, boom. Like if he had that like that quickness behind some of the angles that he changed,
yes,
it would add such a new level of depth
yes,
to the moves that he's trying to present.
yes. I feel like there's a point where he looks safe. He needs to be
Yes.
riskier with his speed in some sort because of the song. We're only saying this because of the song, right? And I'm gonna go back to the I'm just gonna go ahead and play the show on my end. Like, these are really like, it is proper. This is proper
Hmm.
right now. It's happening. 17 seconds, proper. You could be taking lots more risks with the music right now. What
Yeah.
is that? Right? So it's just the small like instances of lyricality, hitting the speed in that lyricality. Like there's a part where like she says every time, right?
Hmm.
Oh, hold you tight. Never mind. Hold you tight. 24. Hold you tight, right? It's like what she's saying,
Yeah.
hold you tight, like in a way where it looks like hold you tight, right? Like hold you tight, hold you tight. That it's riskier to hit that in the song, but we're kind of
Yes.
like we're kind of like at that level where we're kind of just flowing through the movements, which are pristine, which is good, right? But now we're looking at like the musicality aspect. Is it pristine with like perfect musicality, right? And maybe lyricality is something that I don't really see often. I think from Zugs.
Yeah, he seems to be a drum and snare musicality
Yeah,
styled Glover,
with
which is not there's
pace.
nothing bad about it, but it's like sometimes drums and snares are going to be at a very rhythmic pace, whether that's fast or slow, and sticking to them solely will kind of make you a slave to that one pace.
Yes. Yes. Create different styles for yourself with different speeds, I would say. And that's
Yeah.
and this is like I would only suggest this to someone who is like at that level, like at a high level, right? Because
Yeah, agree.
in the journey, let me tell you, okay, so like for a long time, I've been given shows, and I've been given the puppet show. You know what I'm saying? Like there was like the puppet show, like that mysterious. It was like the same thing, and you know you throw that show for 10 years, and it gets tiring. That it's like
Yeah.
that's why artists sometimes like when making music they change it up, guys. That's why they change
Yeah.
it up because they're trying to improve. They're done with that era. So now they're trying to improve as an artist and try out different things, right?
You
And
have to take risks to see growth.
you have to take risks. Right. It's reinventing yourself. Are you
Yep.
able to reinvent yourself or are you going to just and this is not like wrong or by any means, right? Sometimes people
No.
will often fall in love with their own style a bit too much. Like they'll
Yeah.
they'll they'll find something that really like they resonated with, and then it's like they'll stick to that style for like a really long time. And then like the moment that you like, or the moment that there's like a criticism on that style, then it gets very different. I would say to not fall in love with your own style. I know that sounds
So
kind of awkward to say, but like get used to building different. If you're at that top level, get used to building different styles.
agreed. Yeah, I think something that I've always like stuck to as sort of a mantra, especially with my own gloving, is like complacency is the death of creativity. Right? As soon as you
Yeah,
become comfortable and accepting of what your style is, and you think, okay, well, this is what I am, this is how good I am, and this is as far as I'm going to go, right? All of a sudden, you've created that plateau for yourself, and now
yeah.
it's much harder to improve, and your marginal improvements go from 10% every month to 0.5%.
Right. Greatly put, bro. I'm gonna go through the video right now. There's this transition from 26. There's this transition from 26 to 27. Okay. We go into a very intricate form, right? We release into a liquid depth kind of move, which it's not the worst. I would just say you have to watch out for this because it is like a transitional break. Maybe the
Yeah.
fashion in which he did it. I like the fashion in which he did it. I would just say to just be careful with transitional breaks like this because
So
it is going from really technical to pretty simple. You know what I mean?
yeah, And I don't think there's necessarily anything inherently wrong with that, but what I
Yeah,
do think is he is kind of in a weird finger position, and I think because of that, he is starting to focus more on that hand that is going into that liquid form than his other hand, and he starts to kind of float, and you can see him lose like this 90 angle, like this pointer finger, ring finger, or pointer finger, middle finger angle. It starts to kind of go diagonal as he's bringing the
yeah,
liquid around, and
yeah.
he loses that form that he was in because he's more concerned about getting this hand out of the weird transitional position. Because, he had like this, and then he kind of like brings it
And
over,
then he kind of
and
like
like,
it slowly lingers, right? Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
yes,
which is it's a very interesting part because it's not necessarily wrong, but like, that's a risk within itself because I don't know if this is like maybe he caught himself knowing that he's going super complex and he's still at the beginning, right? I think this kind of, if it is that, then that's really high IQ in my opinion because he understands when he's going too complex because it looks like he's teasing. You know what I mean? It looks like because he's going from 21 seconds, he's like deep in this like crazy form, right? The pinches. And then like I feel like he breaks off because if he's like lingering in that like tech for way too long, it's only 27 seconds in. I feel like he knows that
I can
he
I
has
can
to
get
break
that.
off because he's teasing it. You know, I mean, I don't know. If Derek is here, I want you to tell me, like, is that because you understood if you could put yourself in this? I'm not sure if he's actually in the chat. He probably would have said something. But I'm genuinely curious if he caught himself going too complex there, or because I don't think I've ever seen that transition from him before.
Yeah, it's not one that I've seen in the videos that I've watched from him during the
Yeah.
comp or any of the other ones I've seen. Um, eh, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt because he is a very high skilled glover that
Yeah.
he did kind of self recognize like, hey, maybe what I'm doing is too much right now for the point of the song that I'm at, and I didn't want it to
Yes.
go this far.
Yes. And that's a really good characteristic of a good Glover. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? It's like you
yeah,
know how you because sometimes when we're learning tech, right? We're learning tech and um we're at a point in our gloving where we're able to actually do longer connections. Sometimes you can get carried away by just going through the connection for too long, especially in the beginning, that you don't know when to pull back. And so you don't that's a storytelling problem, right? That's a pacing problem. It's a storytelling
yeah,
musicality problem, or knowing how to break your pieces, right? Knowing how to make your pieces dumber.
yeah.
That's the balance is
Baby eyes it.
yeah, and I know that there are maybe a couple of Glovers who are the opposite, who like to start really complex and they don't got like some of the more basic moves down because they want to go super complex. Your video went dark, by the way.
Yeah, I'm coming back. I
But
got you.
yeah, it's incredibly important to be like, okay, what does level 1 of my concept pool look like? What does level 2 look like? What does level 3
Yes,
look like? Okay,
that's a
and
great way to put it.
knowing how to place that within the show, right? You don't want to be doing your level 4 stuff at the beginning, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
And I think, the way that he started out this video is like it's a huge risk because of this exact issue of like, are you at the level of understanding of the move that you're doing that you can immediately transition out of it in a way that makes sense, or is it going to trap you in that oversaturation of tech
yeah,
in such a big, such a opening part? Because I really like this kind of like dial pinch and like going back and forth with the music that he did,
yeah.
but it's that risk of like, okay, so how do I get out of this? He brings it to like
He
this,
goes to
right?
symmetry,
And how do I get out of this symmetry without it being awkward?
right? And it's breaking apart your pieces. So it's like if you're there, right? Like maybe from here to like there isn't the best. Maybe there's like points in the show where like if he is there, then he has to like close one, then close two, then close three, then get into a diagonal, then get into, you know, there's pieces that you have to break into. There's like more in betweens that could serve as transition points rather than from like A to G. You know what I mean? Right? It's a transitional thing for sure. But
Yeah.
that in that particular case, it's like not the worst. It's like it kind
No,
of
no.
works. It kind of works, you know?
Yeah, I think he got the point across. And I also want to say, after rewatching that part again multiple times, like this angle that I was talking about that I kind of had a problem with, I'm not sure if it was an intentional 45. Um,
Yeah, I know what you
but
mean.
if it is, like, more power to him. I would just like to see him utilize it more. Like, I feel like he gets into this position with his I think it's technically his right hand.
Yeah, he's a
But
nerd.
it's almost immediately erased without any kind of like additive transition to it.
Right. And then
Let
like
me
yeah,
watch it again.
because I mean if you look at 26, right? His pathing on his liquid, look at his hand that goes behind, right? The pathing is actually going like straight horizontal. You know, this is actually going straight
Yeah,
horizontal. But
it's
he
good.
has but he no, but then he has like almost kind of like a lingering 45. Like he his front hand is a
Yes,
lingering 45. But then it's
yes,
just odd. It's just odd to have that 45 there and then go into like, you know, like transition into like it's the way that he's doing it. It's weird to go from like a straight like horizontal, but like your hands at a 45. You know,
yes.
because I have a move where I go straight horizontal, but I'm in the 45, but then I make it known that that line is there. You know what I mean?
Right, right. You're
I
creating that
created the line
triangle.
first, but then the way that he transitioned it, it's like two pieces at the same time. Not sure if it quite works, and I see that your camera might be overheating, but I'm gonna be looking at the stream one more time. Because for the most part, right, we're pretty much uh around like the middle part, right? I think the biggest thing is the air traces at some crucial points, like here, like from 30, say from 37, from 37, he grabs his pointer with his thumb. Yeah, he grabs his pointer from his thumb. So it's like that alignment,
Yeah.
the air
Yes.
tracing, right? There's like a lot of cheating. And then here from like
Kind of like here.
from
You know, it's like
40 from 40, yeah, 44, and this whole sequence, it's all air tracing. I would just be careful. Air tracing isn't all that bad. I just
no, it's
think
not.
that it's if you use it too much, then it will mess with your logic. But I feel like Zuggs is like right here, it's like he did air tracing into like a contact, right? Like right here, like
Hmm.
he did 53 isolation, air tracing, contact, and it messes with his logic. Like it actually messes like right here, like he air traces. Okay, we're gonna have to do a frame by frame on him. Okay, he's isolating, air trace this isolation. So his thumb goes down and lands where? Is
On
it
kind
the
of on top of that finger,
it's
right?
like it's not even on top. It's like it's not on top, it's not
It's like
contact behind.
diagonal.
It's like diagonal off, right? And that fucks with the
Yes.
logic. And in this particular frame, his thumbs are diagonal. So then it's like there's at this specific area, that's the part where I could be like, you know, that it wasn't clean there, right? If I could argue that that wasn't clean, like, right, like that's not clean. You know what I mean? Like it's not perfect,
Yeah.
but his movement is clean, so it's harder to catch that
Yes.
type of stuff, right?
Yes.
It's harder to catch that because in the movement it looks pretty good, but when you really look deeper, okay, so he actually like land. He's supposed to land at like the tip of his or the back of his pointer with his thumb, right? But it's so quick because his movement's so clean that it's a little bit off. Look, the line is off. This line is off, right? But his movement again, the logic right there. He traces to his middle, and then the trace is off. He goes from to the top, but he's not really top. That's the risk with air tracing, guys. So, um, yeah, the use case for like, I think that's the thing is knowing the use case for air tracing.
So I think when you're operating on a much larger grid and you're trying to create this portrayal of space, I think that is where air tracing really has its place. But in that kind of move that you were just frame by framing, where he's kind of here and then he comes down and then he like wants to trace back out to this finger, and it's all this connected tech. I feel like any time that you have any kind of air tracing there, you're losing the illusion of what you want to be happening. And that's
Yeah.
that's a dangerous place to be if you're starting to feel real comfortable with that air trace there.
Yeah, I don't even. Do you? How often do you air trace?
Only when I'm tracing along like grid patterns, right? So if I'm like
Oh,
tracing
you're
and then
pathing.
coming,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
yes, yes.
yeah. I don't even think I like when it comes down to like my connections. I don't even think I air trace. I think it's all contact.
Yeah, because
Except for
in those,
exactly that situation where you said where like I'm like outlining, especially with things like depth, like practice like having that pure contact. I think
yes,
yes,
yes.
because there's a lot of corners you might be skipping when you're relying too much on air tracing. But it depends because like Zugs is using it sometimes as a remote because
Yeah, and
he'll
I
like
like that.
grab it.
I like
Yeah, he
that.
grabs it and he'll use it as a remote, which I think is a nice illusion.
I think that's his best use case for the air
Yes,
tracing.
yes, as a remote. Yeah, 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 and well, and pathing, but specifically in that sequence, he did use it as a remote, which is great.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, as far as execution, like, what grade would you give this?
overall for the whole show.
Yeah,
Hmm, that's tough. I'd have to say it's it's wavering around 7 to 8 to me,
really?
and
Holy
it
shit!
yes,
Is it
and
because
that's
of the tutting?
because yes,
I see.
tutting and some of his liquid it feels so his liquid feels very
It is
disconnected,
because it
and
is
I
disconnected. Yeah,
well, and that, and yeah, and there are play again. There's use case for disconnected liquid, but I think some of the things that he was doing didn't call for it, and it's more of a comfortability thing for him.
yeah,
Because I saw it a lot in his competition videos that I was judging as well for King of Future Base. There,
yeah,
there was never really a point where I'm seeing like this full liquid connection from him, and
yeah,
it it takes away from the things that you can do with liquid, and it also strikes me as a execution error at certain
yeah.
times.
That's a big one, and that's one that I do want to talk about a little bit more. Is like if you're not connecting, like if you're not doing hard connections, like that's a level of complexity,
Hmm.
right? It's a
It
level
is.
of it like let's say for people who are like competing in the pit or like competition, like if you're doing this doing the like hard connections, right, to that is always gonna be better than this, like on a complexity level. Because when you're tracing, there's more lines to be traveled. There's more
Yeah,
lines you have to do.
you
And
can feel the connections in your
you
hand and the
feel it,
places that you
yes.
can go with it.
Yes, we're like, this is easier. This
Yeah,
is the contact, this guys, this is really important.
it's
Contact,
difficult.
harder. No contact, easier.
Yep.
Think about that, right? So like if you're looking at execution and someone is air tracing all the time versus someone who is actually online having to find the discipline in the connection, different, way different,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, it's a whole nother
It's a
level.
whole nother level. Yeah, and yeah, I mean, pretty much that's pretty much the yeah. Zugs just has to connect way more. It's gonna mess with his logic a lot more. That's pretty much the biggest thing I would say about his shows.
Um, I would also like to see him. I would like to see him crutch himself to only flow for a little while
Mm.
because I think his whips and some of the implications that he's putting them into the show as are a bit it's a major juxtaposition to his tech because his tech is so complex and then he's just throwing in a couple like standard
Yes,
whips
standard whips or
and
standard liquid. Yeah,
yeah
it's like
and I think
fillerish.
that's right. It's almost filler, and for the most part, it is. And I think he has such a complex mind. I mean, you can see in the way he does his concepts that he thinks very hard about what he's doing. And I would like to see him put that same level of intention into that liquid, into those
Absolutely,
whips.
absolutely. And yeah, this is just a suggestion that I personally want to see from him. Zugs, if you're watching this, I want to see some depth dials and clusters.
Ooh, that
Some
would be sick.
some depth dials and clusters. When he gets into the depth, that looks really good. Like his alignment with his depth is really good. So like
Okay.
if he implemented that, like that's like a whole nother level. You know what I mean? Like he gets into it just a little bit, just a little. No, bro, go into the deep end. I want to see what that looks like. That's like future, bro. I'm telling you. But okay, let's move on to the next one.
Hey, let's take like 5 minutes
Yeah.
and let's just respond to some chat, because
Okay.
I've been
Oh yeah,
seeing it go in
absolutely.
the corner of my
Yeah,
eye and I
great
don't want to
call.
leave these people hanging.
Absolutely great call. Great call. Um. Hey Jacob, miss you, cutie. Glad to see you coming back. We need a click
Love you,
audio
William.
filter turn on. We need click audio filter. Oh yeah, we're going back to when.
Like noise suppression for the clicks, yeah.
Noise suppress. By then, if it's clean in form, movement, one of the definition, internal thoughts, yeah, which is once a year. There's a special feeling to using to close moves with your chest closer. Okay, yeah, we're damn. I'm back to the tie dye stuff. Not tie
Yeah,
dye.
yeah, yeah.
Sorry, freaking title.
Uh
Freaking Olympic.
Alto comes into the chat when we start going over Zug, I think.
Okay, I think you have the cleanest. See some real speed.
Hi, by the way, everybody again.
What up?
Hello to anybody who's new here.
What up, B pie? Is a gloved ever retired though? No, no such thing. Happy Friday.
No,
Happy
Glover's
Friday.
never retire.
They never retire. Yo, what? B pie. Thank you for the donation, bro. Thank you.
Hey,
Hey, thanks for the super chat, brother.
that's huge.
Hell yeah. Appreciate you guys' dope. Hope to see some more collabs. Yeah, man, if I'm totally down to it. Definitely want to make this like a very limited thing. Vex, I'll give you half of that for sure, just to let you
No stress,
know.
brother. No stress. You know I'm not pressed on any of that. 250 coming my way.
Yeah, let's
Big
go. We
fat
got 250,
250.
baby. Why was
And that's not a shot at the donation at all. I hope you guys know that
yeah, no,
we
there's
appreciate that so much.
no, I just like to make everyone, just keeping it transparent, Keeping it transparent. How much is a McChicken nowadays?
Probably more than 250, I think.
Bro, remember when they used to be $1?
So, yes. So that your tuts are more cleaner, bending fingers too risky. Yeah, if you're talking about bending your fingers so that you can hit an angle sharper, I think that is a big risk. I think it is. I understand that sometimes it can feel really uncomfortable to stretch um, your wrists to hit an angle, and it feels more comfortable to kind of curve your fingers just a little bit of a claw when you're kind of hitting that palm up angle, but it's going to take a hit to the execution and the shapes that you're making.
Not to not be repetitive, just don't be afraid to look awkward. Okay, you want to know my little 2 cents on that? You know why I feel like why I feel like some Glovers will look awkward? Okay, it's probably because they don't know how to dance. Like
Oh,
I wholeheartedly believe if you like try to learn like a dance, like I don't know whether it be like popping or like locking or just a different dance, it is only beneficial because like there's like a confidence in learning how to like do other dance forms. I feel like if you're just like a glover, like it's awkward because you're only trying to know how to move your hands, right? Like through gloving you're
Yes.
like learning just to move your hands, you don't know how to move your body. So I
Yes.
really advise everybody who's like getting into gloving, get into a different dance, like on the side, not on the side, because this is what I do. It's like there's a certain like I hate to say this word swagger, like when you learn like different
Yeah.
dances. You can't dance. You
Yeah.
gotta move your body,
Completely
man.
agree.
Yeah.
You know, I got this comment a lot when I had first started gloving, and it's a huge compliment to me. You know, I appreciate anyone who's ever said it to me. It was always like, what, did you do some kind of dance like before you started gloving? And the answer is no. You know, I honestly,
Mm.
I white boy dance. I can't dance to save my life. Um, but I think I have kind of grown up around a lot of music. You know, my dad is a musician. He played a lot of guitar, sang in bands, and I've always been I think uh, I, I move around a lot when I talk and when I explain things, and I have that natural like body movement, and I think that has played to my benefit in gloving. And if you feel like you're someone, everybody knows themselves the best, better than I know you, better than Kevin knows you. If you feel that you are kind of that stiff person, or you don't have a lot of body language when you're talking or anything,
Yeah.
um, I would recommend doing exactly what Kevin says, right? Get into some kind of dance on the side. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. Learn a couple dance moves, try to get that groove going with your whole body, listening to some music, and use that to your advantage in gloving because it makes a difference. It really
Absolutely.
does.
How many times do you change your batteries a week, my guy? So it really depends. Like if I'm streaming on like let's say YouTube or TikTok, sometimes I'll change it like twice a week. But most times I don't have to change my batteries until like uh I probably like in a month, probably like three. He's got rechargeable
I
lights.
think
I do use rechargeable lights, but
not all the
duos
time.
duos hurt my fingers, bro.
True.
They hurt my cuticles, dude, and I'm too afraid to take them out the casing.
Will, okay, yeah. So I was waiting for Kevin to finish, but I wanted to touch on this repetitive question, right? Because I don't think it necessarily got answered. I think being repetitive is a symptom of being comfortable with the moves that you have, right? And part of breaking out of that comfortability is almost what we were just talking about for Zug, right? Like you need to be pushing yourself to do things that don't feel natural, right? Doing some crazy tutting angles, doing some crazy tech forms like that you're not used to, some crazy scales, and learning new dexterity. So, and let me turn my camera back on for this. I'm gonna give it another rest when we turn this video on, but hopefully it'll help with the heating overheating issue. Um, so when you have like this kind of dexterity and you can go through all these moves, like if you feel like you're stuck somewhere, try to learn a new level of dexterity. And it's something that needs to be drilled a lot, and it's very tedious. But even like, learning like digit rolls where like different fingers are coming down, like those kinds of dexterities will it breaks open a new door for you to travel into different things. Like if you don't do clusters, try clusters. If you've never done impacting, try some impacting. You really have to reinvent yourself to get yourself out of feeling repetitive in a show or feeling like, I always do these same moves in my shows, or always fall back on like these five concepts that I know that I'm super comfortable with.
Let me just
All
be.
always coming back, baby. You know it.
Yeah, I think also like the repetitive. So I talk about this a little bit. So there, in order to like, okay, in order to get really good, like if you want
Hmm.
to get like, if you're at a plateau, there's one way to raise the skills. Well,
To
yeah,
raise the roof.
to raise a roof. Yeah, and that's to increase the knowledge ceiling. Like
Yeah, yeah,
if
exactly.
you increase the knowledge ceiling, then you're gonna find like a bunch of different things to work on. It's all just knowledge. The more knowledge that you have, then you have to fill in the gap. I think of it as like a container, okay? So like if you're plateaued, your water bottle might be like, okay, imagine if this was full, right? So like, yeah, like this is everything that I know and everything that I don't know. Like imagine if the water was like right there. So like you increase the knowledge ceiling so you know what to work on. Then you're gonna have to do executional bro. I'm like water bottle liquid depth perception concept. But you increase the knowledge ceiling, you fill in the gap through execution. But like labbing the same things over and over and over again is also improvement because then that's your 10,000th rep. That's your
Yeah,
11,000th rep.
it is. But and I think you're right though, is it's about learning those new concepts, broadening your understanding of different concepts, right? Like, you know, I was at a point in my gloving and there was a team called Wet that isn't really active anymore, as far as I know. But they were known for these liquid-based shows. And at the time, I thought, in my head, like, man, liquid is good, and I'm not sure why I can't get onto this team, right? Because I tried out for this team a few times and I didn't make
Wait,
it.
what? Yo,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Um, and
I didn't know that.
it- yeah, 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 yeah. And it took me basically reaching out to the people that I thought had the best liquid and some of the people on the wet team and kind of them breaking down for me like the things that I didn't understand about liquid because at the time liquid to me, it was this very like tight thing and I was trying to get it cleaner and that was my main goal. But then, Thumbsy, PLO, Mario, amazing guy. He brought to my attention, he was like, you don't use your elbows at all when you're liquiding. And that blew my mind. And all of a sudden, I had all these new things to work on, like all these really big angles that are like leading with your elbow and using that whole part of your arm to be a part of the liquid rather than just keeping it locked to your fingers and your hands. Um, and it is a deep dive. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of dedication, but reaching into those far lengths, like Kevin said, jumping into the deep end of a concept or an idea or a theory is really going to push your ability and your repertoire so much so that you'll feel like you almost can't keep up with the amount of concepts and things
Yeah,
that you're
dude.
coming up with.
Yeah, bro. It's like I know exactly what you're talking about.
I've had points in my gloving where it's like I could throw a concept in a show and someone would ask me about it and I'd be like, I don't know. I couldn't replicate that again for you because I have so many concepts going in and out of my brain and I'm thinking about so many different things and talking to so many different glovers that like I'll use a concept for 3, 4 shows and then it's overused. And then I'm like, I have to move on from this. I have to
Yeah.
bring something new to the table. I have to be on the next level again.
Yeah, there's like also like you could be swapping, so you could be swapping like philosophies like mid show,
Yeah,
right? Like okay,
yeah,
like think about this, okay? Like think about this, and then like it's about asking yourself like the right questions as well. I think that like there's a certain point like when we're getting the gloving where we accept everything that we hear, but then like you're gonna have to do your own due diligence, like even with the
Hmm.
things that we say. And this is something that
Yeah,
I talk about like
yeah.
in the Glowing Academy Patreon is everything that I say, like I want you to question everything that I say because this is like science, right? We're here to really just find the truth. But like think about this, right? It's like asking yourself the right questions. Like this is like liquid, right? This is like
Hmm.
liquid. But then if my intent is my hand pulling this, isn't that a remote? Right? And then so like you flip that switch, you change that philosophy. Okay, so if I'm thinking of this liquid as a remote, that changes the way that I do things rather than doing just the liquid, right? You're thinking, okay, liquid, maybe I'm just gonna be like water, but no. But what about the act of me pulling it like a remote? Like I'm pulling and I'm pushing, I'm controlling it. You're adding
Hmm.
different words to the same visual, but it's a completely different intent.
Yeah, I
Gloving theory
agree. I
time,
think that's a
yes.
great way to put it.
Yeah, and that is with everything in gloving. That's everything. How do I
Yeah.
submit for critique? I'll submit my last upload from last September. That's HM. You go by. Can you So on the let me go ahead. On the screen now, there's a Venmo. You can send over $10 and then send maybe Jacob the video if you have them added, and then we could go ahead and take a look at that. Are you good to go for the next vid? By the way, Jacob, we have
Yeah, yeah,
quantum.
yeah. I'm ready whenever you are.
We have quantum. All right, all right, all right. Sick.
And congrats, Will, on coming up on 10 years, man. That's an awesome milestone to hit.
Dang, 10 years.
What are you at now, Kevin?
I'm at 12 on to 13.
I think that's where I am too.
Holy shit. Speaking of 13, we got 13 people in here. Let's go. Shout out to everybody. Thank you for being here.
Ooh.
All right.
Yeah, thank you.
Is it Venmo early? Don't have one. Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, well, you can send in the video to Jacob, and we could handle that after the stream, or handle it
Yeah,
with
that's fine.
yeah, Jacob. It's totally super chill about it, brother. Do you have Quantum's show loaded?
Yeah, I do.
All right.
All right, let me shut my camera off just to preserve heat.
Yeah. Oh shit, dude, my camera's about to. Oh, shit. Okay. All right, ready? 3, 2, 1. Hey, song though.
Yeah, I know.
Is Quantum invisible? Oh, there he is.
I was gonna say, hold on. I like this vibe we're coming in.
I
Huh?
love this, bro. Oh, we got the bouquet.
Oh.
He didn't take it.
That was cool. I love that.
Oh. Ooh.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. All right, this build up's got to have a payoff
Oh.
now. Very interesting. Interesting. Okay, a little bit of a hang up, a little bit of a repeat. Couple logic
Couple logic,
missteps,
yeah,
but this
couple logic is really. It's Quantum, man. Quantum with this style.
it's very interesting. I like
It's really
it.
interesting.
Okay, I don't know if these lights are just like on a demo mode, but they just like immediately change. That's very cool.
Yeah. And I feel like the pacing, maybe he clicked. I think because if it's synergies, right? I think you can click them once and they all change or something like that. Someone please
Oh,
correct me if I'm
okay.
wrong.
Yeah, so maybe you just hit one thumb and it just swapped everything.
Yeah, pacing really good musicality wise.
Okay,
A little
behind the
clash
back,
there, I
respect
think,
it.
with the back. A little clash.
Yeah, there was a hang up with it. Ooh.
Oh, the illusion, bro.
I definitely see some whips that are going unfinished as well.
Yeah, I like how he's swaying his body actually with the liquid. I actually think it adds
Oh,
to.
dude.
I think it adds to it, like the vibe and everything.
Yes. Yes, 100%.
Yeah. Oh.
Okay. Ooh.
Dude, that was
awesome.
That was fun. That was so
Yeah, that was a fun
fun,
show to
dude.
watch.
As a light show, bro, like as a light show, that was so good. Like I love like if I were to like get that in front of my face, perfect, man. Perfect.
Yeah, that would have be a fun one to get for
Like
sure.
at
Like
an
that's a
event,
very
yeah,
engaging
really
show.
fun, really engaging. Like the thing about like how do you say it? The thing about having intros like that where it's just not gloving,
Hmm.
I think it's fucking OP, bro. Like
It is.
I think it
It
sets the
is.
tone in a way that it's different, you know what I mean? It sets the tone and it like you're off. It makes me wanting to know what is going to happen next. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great Trader Festival for sure. Um okay. So as far as the critical being more critical about it, okay. So
Hmm.
I think that there could have been a lot of pieces where you could have worked with them, and the entire show is just super high. It's just super different, like super high caliber. Like could have been so many times where you could have paused in a formed and work with what you got, right?
Yeah, I think there was a little bit of perpetual motion going on where it
Yeah,
almost felt like we didn't ever stop long enough to see any forms or anything that was happening. It was just, it kept flowing. It was
yes.
flowing out,
It
you know?
was a
He was,
ride. It was a ride.
yes,
Right? We got on
yes.
the ride and we got off, right? And then
Yeah.
so like there wasn't any, it almost kind of felt like the show was like this, like on a storytelling scale. It was like boop, right?
Yeah.
There's just a drop off. There
Hmm.
wasn't this building. There was no suspense. There was no commas. There were no periods. It was
We got
just all
suspense at the
go. We
beginning,
got
and
suspense at
then
the beginning.
once
Yeah.
that drop hit, it was it, and I almost look at it as like it was coming up, coming up, coming up, coming up, drop, and then we're on a flat line,
Flat
and we're
line.
just going across,
Yes, right. And then it just ended, right? There was
and then it
no
just dropped.
there was no building of the moves. There was no
Yes.
pieces. It was all just boom, boom. That's why I say it's like a ride, bro, because there's no like
Yeah.
it's like you're in there, you're having fun, and then we're out, right?
Yeah.
And like that is I know Quantum shows really well, so like I know that show was just straight fun, bro. It was just straight fun. Like, and we have to always talk about the probably the meat of Quantum show, where I'm just gonna go ahead and skip to the whole dial sequence, right? And
At the beginning.
I want to know your thoughts on this, Jacob, because Quantum aims to, at least from when I talked to him, he wants to keep that madness. Usually, he wants to keep that madness within the dials, and he wants to keep it. But I feel like that there's still, and he's gotten better with it over the years. But there's some parts of it where it doesn't quite sell yet, and
Yes.
I over the weekend I feel for me personally I've gone through some mental gains with the whole going thing. So I feel like I have a part of it that could help steer him in the right direction. But the thing is, he wants to keep the chaos, but like a controlled chaos, and he wants to usually keep this illusion, like this whole dial pinch stack illusion, right? And when he does like this, specifically this sequence right here, uh, does he actually go deeper into it? Did he stop there? I think that was it, right? He doesn't go deeper. Oh, no, does he go deeper into it? I don't remember. No, he's got the static lines. Yeah, it actually might have been just there at the beginning. Yeah, it might have been just at the beginning, like here at around
Where it's curved.
like 51 second, no, 53 to, yeah, he's still going. 53 to like a minute. He's got like these dial. I know he can do longer. That's the thing, is I know he can do longer within these like dial sequences. Um,
Right.
but he didn't really portray them usually as he usually does them longer. So
So there was a Glover a while ago, and he was on Ion. His name was Ewok. He was actually one of the first people on Ion. And he had a dial style similar to this, where it's kind of like traditional top dials, like you're kind of like one by oneing it, and
yeah,
you're going like
very beginner
in
dials.
very specific places.
Yes.
Um, and with his approach, it's like they're like sliding dials, right? Like it's
Yes.
this slide and moving like through these angles and like constantly being at a different dial position.
Yeah.
But I think it becomes cumbersome. It becomes cumbersome at times to kind of digest. And I understand like exactly what you just said, right? He wants to keep that chaos. And I'm not telling him to necessarily do a traditional dial style, but I think if he were to kind of spend some time working on a traditional dial uh, execution, then he would be able to add that kind of flow and like insanity that he's bringing into what he's got going on right now, and it would solidify some of the forms, right? Because I think that's one of my biggest issues with what I'm seeing from it is it seems like it loses its form, and then it loses
Yeah.
some of its impact because of that.
Yeah, it gets I feel like to a point at times where it's very subjective, because like I totally get wanting that chaos style. There are like elements
Yeah.
where it's like, yeah, like that I kind of fuck with it, bro. Like and I told him this before, it's kind of almost like an acquired taste. Like it's
Yeah.
like you watch it and you're like, yeah, man, I'm actually, there's this thing where it's like when Glovers get into like a connection based style, it's like you either uh you either surrender or you're following. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like when like someone who's like doing traces, I think that like slow enough. A good example of this is Mega Sloth, right? So Mega Sloth, you're following along, and like I want you to think about it in terms of like attention, or like, you know what I mean? You're like following along, and he just gets into these like intricate like places. Part of it is because his fingers are really long, and you know the essence in how he's doing it. So you're following along, right? You're able to follow and understand. Then there's
Yes.
like flight, right? And it's either someone going too fast, right? And
Hmm.
like there's like someone who's going either too fast in the connection. I kind of put myself in this pool of like fight sometimes when I go really fast, but sometimes I like that, you know what I mean? Like as I'm
Yeah.
watching, like as a general, like I'm sometimes I like being lost, and I like to just go for the ride. And that's exactly on a, except for Quantum, it's on that dial sense where it starts to become very chaotic, right? And it becomes kind of it's a risk when you're in pits. When you're in pits or competition, it's a risk because not everyone understands the style. But I do want to talk about something that I think no one really talks about, and this could open a lot of doors to for a lot of Glovers, right? And I think that within this whole dial style, right? And I want to talk about corner placements. Think about this.
Okay.
Okay. So and this and I talked to a couple people about this, but then if you think about logic, okay, if you think about logic, when you think about like a hinge, okay, and this part of this might play back into quantum style, but I think it needs. I think it's a part of it. It's a part of the puzzle where if I have this placement, okay, and if I were to hinge perfectly, right, you have this roll, right? You're rolling, right, and guess what? You land at the corner, and this doesn't get talked about at all. No one talks about this. So we're being logical here, right? So from here, if we were to do a hinge, you actually land at the corner. So, but the problem with the corner is some people they'll lie, right? They'll do the hinge and they'll be here. If you're hinging from here, you never land to the side. You never.
No, it doesn't.
So we have micro adjustments, okay? And this happens. It's fine, right? It's fine, but we're missing the piece that there is this corner placement. So now what happens when we do this corner placement? And this is where odd becomes even, okay? You can add another corner placement. So we have this number 3. And so we have two corner placements. Actually, we have more than 2 corner placements, okay? So the thing with, and why I think this might help with quantum style is because when we're doing all these crazy, like in this chaos, like when we're in here, sometimes we might land in this corner placement and then we might have to go into like an odd number. Going into like a 3 where we're utilizing the corner placements to transition within the chaos. I think just that alone, that's why I say it might open some doors. I think for me, it gives me a goal to test now, and I want people to test this if they're out here listening. Like, try getting into like those very chaotic dials and getting into those corner placements. And when you're when you're in those corner placements, if you're at an odd number, try adding into an even number and then finding the transition within that. Or if you're at an even number and then you're at the corner placements, try adding an odd number and then finding the transitions within that. I think that part of figuring out how to make quantum style perfect logic is within that, right? That's the corner placements.
Okay,
and no one, it's freaking hard. Like, well, that's gonna take a long time.
It's a very minute thing, and it's going to be something that I think takes a lot of deep diving and a lot of practice with. But I do think that could actually open up a lot of things for him as far as creating that logic base. And I think that's one of the things that irks me a little bit about the style of dials that he has. Not that I dislike it, it's extremely cool, and I respect the dedication to the craft and trying to keep that madness. But
it's unique. It's very unique.
It is. But I'm a big execution and logic person when it comes to gloving. And if I'm, strictly on a scorecard basis, if I'm seeing that, that's hurting your
it is hurting. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's taking points off. As soon as I see that, I'm dropping a point.
Yeah. And that's the reality of it, right? Is like, because it is chaotic at certain points, it's the trick is knowing how to get people to understand it, and that's through logic, right?
Yes.
And that's the difficulty with that style is like, how do you make chaos logical? And that's why he's named Quantum, bro, right? That's why it's named Quantum, and that's gonna, maybe it's the corner placement, maybe it's through like other means like color coordination. I don't know. I unfortunately do not have the answer to that, but
I feel like there has to be some type of cross section with morphing in his style that could really add a layer of understanding to the type of chaos that he's presenting, right? Because morphing is like this very open-ended kind of
Yeah.
free-form movement, and
Yes.
I think it kind of encapsulates more of the craziness that he wants to have and he does have. And if he could add that morphing on top of what he's doing, then it could create a whole new subsection of logic for him that is uniquely entirely to his style.
Yeah, and for things like this, I think I believe like there are certain truths that you need to learn in order to really like take your style to like the next level, and and maybe it's a truth of like even utilizing more circles, and Jacob, I've talked about this before, but like
Mm,
when you utilize circles, sporadic lines make sense because like
right.
if I have this 5 point, let's say if I'm doing like like just straight tech like this, like sometimes it won't work because like I have sporadic lines, but sometimes it does work, right? But if I'm utilizing a circle, like the truth is in whips and your camera thing, but anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, the truth is in whips, right? Because like I have sporadic lines and whips and that's clean. But if I'm like
Yes.
within like the chaos, if maybe there's something about circle pathings that adds to the chaos or makes sense of it, because chaos makes sense utilizing circles. At least that's the truth that I come up with. I think that
No,
there
that
is. I
that
think there
makes
is
sense.
truth in that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I think that like, and this kind of stems. This is going a little bit deeper now into things like that are probably unrelated to like dials specifically. But there's also this curvature grid that I feel
Hmm.
like because dials he's utilizing like 90 degrees, right? 90-degree like stacks. And that's quarter circle, right? Circles are
Hmm.
being used, right? That what he's doing it in a fashion like his like in like his arm. He's doing it in a fashion where like he's like moving. It's a static palm. Like he'll like move like statically. But then like what if he were like to be almost uh transitioning, but like in a circle? You see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
There might be
Yeah.
certain
Yeah. Yeah.
angles that exist within that circular movement that he can't get with just static z-axis or x-axis, y-axis, just static axes, right? So that's another suggestion. Is to play around with circular uh movement within the dials.
And something that I believe very heavily in gloving, right, is you need to know the rules to be able to bend the rules.
Yes, yes, yes.
And I feel like, and I don't know a lot about Quantum or his mindset or how long he's been gloving or any of these things, but it the way that some of his execution comes off, it seems like he is, if rules are a fence and then bending rules is on the other side, he's jumping over the
He's
rules and
jumping
just
over.
jumping straight
Yeah.
into bending them,
Yes, yes, yes. And I think it for his particular case, it's finding those rules may be a little bit more.
laboring.
If he wants to keep that style, then like some of those rules are a little bit more like yeah, you have to know a little bit more rules. And maybe because I feel like we're having kind of difficulty just being like knowing how to fix that, finding chaos and making it logical. Maybe that's just where we are in gloving right now, and we don't have like that fix, which I think
Yeah.
is really interesting because we don't know. We don't know everything, right? It's definitely we don't have all the information, which I think is really exciting. We don't have all the information to know how to make it logical chaos.
Right.
That's where we're at right now.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
isn't
I
that
mean,
like humbling?
yeah, absolutely. People have said for a long time, oh, gloving's dead. Like we figured everything out already. Like there's nowhere else to go. Like it's just so far from the truth. And
Yes.
I think this type of style is a perfect example of that.
Yes, exactly. It's like it's pushing styles in a completely different way, and for no one has really perfected that style yet, and you don't see that style at all. What do you think from Scott? What do you think is the distinction between what Quantum is doing and morphing? Oh, that's a good question. To me, his style looks a little morphy.
So
It's a loaded
morphing,
question.
yeah, and I'm gonna try and be as concise as I can be. But morphing is a collection of transitions that involve your hands not breaking apart, right? So in essence, you know, the dials that he's doing is a subsection of morphing, but morphing in its like natural state is a lot of pinches, a lot of tracing, a lot of uh, pokes, things like this, where you're basically not losing the illusion that the shapes that you're making are just morphing from one to another, right? So my style is very contact and connectivity based, but my style is not morphing because I am focused more on grid work and very like standard lines and very standard pathing, whereas morphing is kind of this free flow, like we're moving around, changing all of these shapes and we're landing in a position that is entirely different from where we started versus
Yeah.
my version of transitions, like they're very almost cut and dried, like you know where it's going to go, and that's part of the satisfaction that I get from it because it is so um plain for people to see, like where I'm trying to go, what I'm trying to do, but it's the execution of that that I think is pleasing,
Yeah,
right?
it's very satisfying. Tracing straight lines is satisfying, bro.
It is. It is. I
Yeah.
hope that that kind of answers it.
Yeah. Standard pathing, he says, yeah, be a matter like what the fuck. That's a really great point. Yeah, it's like, but I totally
Well,
get, I
I've
totally
dabbled in a
understand.
lot of morphing.
Yeah, like, well, I totally understand what you say by like when you say that you call yourself standard pathing because the lines are straight. If you break down Vex's style, move for move, and not as a whole piece, it's very standard pathing. Like it, but it's like
Hmm.
really good pathing. That execution and the speed at which Vex does it is like really good. But then like if you like break it down, you could digest what's happening. Where like with like
Yes.
quantum's moves, like there's many moving parts. Some maybe there's 10 moving parts. There's like probably 10 moving parts, and that like if you were to like go piece by piece, there's like 10 things moving at the same time. You know, what do you think he should do to get to that type of style, transitioning without breaking his hands apart to get? Wait, what do you think he should do to get to that type of style? Transitioning without breaking his hands apart to get into a different dial type position. I don't actually know the answer to that because I think that where that style is right now is it's so foreign and it's so far out there that like it needs more of like a sample size for people to really understand. Like people need to, if you could get like 10 quantums to get together and like because they understand it more, then like better, right? But I don't think we're at that part where we can really understand what
Yeah,
how to make it completely work.
I don't want to say that what I'm saying is any kind of definitive answer or it's necessarily right, but I do think, Scott, what you're touching on in your comment there is almost kind of what I'm envisioning, where he's using these forms and he's allowing himself to move along the the placement of his hands and trying to morph it and not lose that connection to really create that sense of logic within what he's doing, where it still is encompassing the chaos and the insanity of what he's trying to produce, but in a way that it's almost like this. I'm surprised at the position he got to, but if I were to break it down frame by frame, it all makes sense. And I think right now, if we were to break Quantum's style down frame by frame, there would be a lot of logic missteps, things that are unexplainable, right?
Yeah, and maybe part of that has to be from venturing off into different concepts. like in order for it to work. Maybe it's like a
Yes.
maybe it's a
Yes.
maybe it like there's a piece in clusters. Maybe there's a piece in like logical clusters that is the key to fixing, or not I don't want to say fix, right? I don't
No,
want to
yeah.
disrespect, like, but in order
Developing.
to develop it, yeah, if there's a way to develop that style to make it more mature, maybe the piece is in somewhere like clusters, because um like maybe it's within stepping in clusters while rotating your hands. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But I can't. But we can't figure that out. Like we don't.
Yeah, we don't have a definitive answer,
Yeah, we'll just put it
unfortunately.
over here and put the put it in the fridge for a few minutes. Okay. Yo, Sake, I think we're up on you, bro. Hey, Sake, you're gonna send me $10, right? Oh, I think he did. Hold on. Let me just double check.
Yeah, when we're watching this next video, I'll be shutting my camera off that to give it a little bit of a break before we start diving deep into it.
Okay, yeah, Will sent me. Uh, uh, oh god, I'm about to get absolutely cooked. We actually don't. I don't see it. Psych. But yeah, I actually don't see it. But we'll look. We'll take a look at it regardless. But yeah, let me know. Let me know when that actually goes through. Or maybe I'm tripping out. They're gonna cook me harder than Vex's camera.
And also, Andy, man, I mean, OCD with gloving, everybody's brain, I think, works different and how they perceive certain concepts and what they think is proper execution. And I think just over the years that me and Kevin have been performing and been learning, we have developed a certain eye and a certain uh, partialness to a very like that very minutia level of execution and like being um as like critical of all these tiny details as possible to try and create
Yeah.
the best show. And I think gloving right now is in a different place than it was than when we started. And shout outs to Kevin for putting together all these online competitions and the stuff that he's been doing in the past year and stuff. And it's bringing a little bit of what me and Kevin came up and back. But when we started, and I think when we started to get really noticed in the scene, competition was everything.
Yeah, it was like
So
everywhere. You get to choose, right? Of choose which
boss
one.
boss competitions that are going on in California, they're going on, and they had one in Hawaii that I think Kevin helped host. They were going on in Florida where I'm at. They were going on in I helped host one in Minnesota with Jest. Like they were going on all the time, nonstop. It was like all year round, every other month, there was a new competition to go to. And they had GMO online, they had Lights On online. Like it was just this circuit of competition. And I
Yeah,
think that kind of shaped our perspective in terms of execution to being so nitpicky and so aggressive with the way that we perceive certain things.
absolutely. And especially when you're judging all this stuff, right? Like when you're judging, you just kind of naturally build that eye to what is good. I think that's the question, or the journey, is what is a good light show? And that answer varies from person to person, right? But there are objective things. But anyway, let's go on and watch Scott's show.
Sounds good.
Oh, let me go.
All right.
Let me know when you're
Vertical light show.
get posture. 3, 2, 1.
Oh, all of the bitches anxiety, cars robotic, we go retarded.
Oh, this is straight
Interesting.
business, bro.
When I get home, I need to top. Louis Vuitton when I leave the house. She got an ass and I
Some logic already
All
off the
right.
bat. Some logic.
And we see the air tracing slash kind of floating.
Yeah. The alignments could use a little bit more work in some.
Kool-Aid jammer, cookie pack on camera, yeah. She wanna twerk on my chain, getting that brain, swerving your lane.
I wish he hit it harder there.
It was a cool concept for sure.
Yeah, lots of cool concepts.
When you a boss, don't take a loss, count up a check. Soul plate, never late, go on dates. When you get up, they hate. Diamonds, they drip like a lake. I leave a 10, kick flip an 8.
Thumb placement or thumb direction there.
Yeah. Interesting transition.
Yeah, like I was like, how do you get it to that tut? I think it worked.
It did. Okay.
I got standards, suck on my nuts like planners. Ooh, yeah, my bitch a dancer, hop on a dick like a prancer. Ooh,
oh, that's some
cool.
nice. I need to see more musicality.
Yeah.
I need to see more matching of the vibe.
Yeah, this is such a commanding song, and I feel like we're stuck in this pace.
We're going through the motions.
Yes.
Lingering finger there on the digit. Oh, Victor. Oh my god. Okay. So
very cool background.
And I want to talk about this because I feel like this has been a more common lately, and I am guilty of this myself. And that's because you're looking at the camera, right?
Yeah.
Scott, when we're looking at the camera, we are saying, I hope my execution is perfect. Like, I'm looking for good execution, right?
Yeah.
That you're tunneling on your execution. You're tunneling on it. You're not actually locked in. Like, and then so there's a couple things that happen, right? You lose that intimacy with the audience. You lose that intimacy because eye contact is like the most intimate thing that you could do with the audience, is that eye contact. It's another level of showmanship, right?
Yes.
And yeah, you're too stuck in the tech for too long, and there isn't risks in the musicality. You right? I had a monitor set up. Yeah, no, dude, I totally get it. I have a problem with this myself. I mean, even till today, like, getting that perfect thing, but that is the thing that you sacrifice, right? And you lose that rawness. You lose that rawness in the feeling, and that just plays into the whole performance. It really, in the end, it really depends on your goal.
Yes.
But like, I would really suggest, right, like, throwing shows, not looking to the camera here and there, because then that's your actual execution. That's your actual execution. Because in a comp, right, you got one shot and like you don't got the camera there, so it's like I would practice just not looking at just raw record, and it's just you and the no screen, no.
Right.
Go ahead, the jig up.
I was gonna say, I think there's a level of being uncomfortable with the framing of your show and not being accustomed to the camera that you're throwing to, right? Like, you're a bit worried about, am I out of frame? Am I in frame? Like, what is being lost in my show right now because I'm out of frame? And that, like, when you have a monitor or something to look at, or your phone screen facing back at you to look at while you're gloving, it's almost like it's really difficult not to look. Like, you're like, oh fuck, I'm gonna take a glance like real quick at the playback just to make sure I'm still in frame, and then you kind of get lost in your own gloving because you're trying to keep it within that frame and keep it at a certain level of execution, like Kevin was saying. But and I agree, don't try not to look at the camera as much as you can, but really, in my head, and this is the way that I throw shows to cameras, and I've been gloving to cameras for forever, being in the East Coast and everything being in the West Coast. And I'm sure Kevin can agree with this in his position as well. Like, it was difficult for us to always be hanging out with people that were gloving. And so you end up being in front of the camera a lot. But I think treating that camera lens as an individual, as a person that you're performing for, and getting into that mindset of like, okay, this camera lens is two eyes in front of me. Like it's putting you into that mindset of like, okay, I'm at, you know, a festival and I'm giving a show to someone who's watching me versus I am performing for a camera.
Absolutely. And this is probably just because, you know, we're at the vertical, right? So
Yeah.
can't really
Yeah. It's tough.
it's tough, man. There's a part here. Let me see if I can find it. Was that initial drop? There's a big clue. Find it. Okay. There's a big clue here. Okay. Look at I'm gonna play it. Okay, 29.
Where you at?
I'm at 29, and then I'm just gonna play it at the drop. I want you to pay attention to the drop. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Okay, right there. Boom, that's it. You notice something? 029. All right, at 029 to 031. Right, one more time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, you see how the background? You see the background is hitting that.
Yeah, it's flickering.
It's flickering. That's musicality.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at what Psych is doing. He's not flickering. He's in
we're
tech.
stuck in that cluster.
That should be texture. You know what I'm saying? And Vex, is your camera? Oh, there it is. Sorry.
Yeah. Hi.
Yeah, and like
yeah, it's not so much that the position he's in is bad or like it's something he should stray away from, but you're right that kind of texture of like, you know, we're somewhere like this, right? And even if you're like woo and then it comes back together. Like that. No, go ahead.
No, that's what separates good from great.
Yes.
It's making those riskier hits, that texture. I mean, the light in the background is doing it. You know what I'm saying? Like, why aren't you? Right?
Yeah.
That's a big clue. Right? And just to kind of comment, right? That's a great idea. I never thought about executing it like that. I think, like, I like to think about it in, like, we're like visualizers, you know what I mean? Like glovers. We're like visualizers, right? We have lights. We make patterns and shapes. So getting out of the mind frame of like just like textures, not textures, getting out of just like tech positions,
Moves.
but like making your tech positions visualizers. And I think because Psych is he's relatively newer, right, compared to us.
Okay.
I think that there's a big gap there in terms of like the generation. Like people like within our like generation of Glovers, like you'll see more of that, right? I mean, granted, like maybe not all the time. It was, I think that like majority of people were like doing like a lot of wave tuts. You know, this is kind of like before clusters, right? So you got to see a little bit more of that visualizer effect. Right, I mean, OGs kind of basically have this. Guys like on AO, pretty much it's all finger rolls, so you get more of that visualizer effect. But then nowadays, there's almost too much of a focus on the connection in the form and not the actual illusion of the light. The illusion of the light is a big. It's lost. It has been lost in translation since COVID. I think, like mostly since COVID from the newer gen, and that's totally. I mean, that's totally okay. That's just. You know, that's just like the story of the community of where we are, right? How long OGs have been in the scene and whatnot. But if you can replicate or even like, you know, replicate that illusion of like the visualizer or of the lights, the illusion into what you have now, then you get closer to the source of gloving, the source of what gloving is about. That is the disconnect between old gen and new gen. Because when you think about gloving, what it was for, it was to mess people up. It was to give them a show. It was to mess up everything,
Match the
right?
music.
Match the music. That, like, when newer glovers, it's all about technique. It's all about the technique. But then, like, if you can match more of that show, like that light show aspect with your tech, then you have the best of both worlds. Then you're closer to the source of gloving, right?
And I want to throw this tip out there for anybody who's listening. I think it applies to you as well, Scott. So, and this is something that I've taught a lot of people. When you're thinking about textures in gloving, I want you to try and relate it more to things in nature and how things in nature move based on the sounds that they're making, and then trying to implement that kind of movement, it how it's moving or the sound that it's making, or those combined, putting that movement into your own concepts can change and add a whole new layer to the things you're doing, right? Like if I have if I have a floor and I have a leaf floating around in the wind and it's coming down and then it lands right, that's a texture that I'm adding to the move rather than like my hand just like moving around and like coming
Yeah.
down.
Right.
And thinking about those things in nature, or like, Kevin used to have this concept that we
gym.
talked about, the jungle gym, and it's this little monkey who's jumping around and he's moving all around on these bars, right? We're taking these textures and these ideas from things that are in nature, and I think, when I see that move and I think about that bass that's hitting, right, I'm thinking of like bee or like hummingbird wings
Like,
that are flapping, like right, and if it
yeah,
and then you're coming back together, like that kind of thought process can help you reach those conclusions, when you're not thinking about, like, you said you're like, oh, I didn't think of executing the move in that way. And I think having that kind of bridge from the real world to the concepts that you're doing can help open your creativity as far as what is and what isn't possible.
it makes it more visually appealing as well. In my opinion, it kind of like sparks curiosity, or like creativity rather, to the audience, right? Because you're very binary right now, right, Scott? With your connections, very binary. Like most of it makes a lot of sense, but then like you make it come to life. That's what makes your moves come to life. You could do that swing of the leaf back and forth with your tech forms, right? It doesn't have to be that form. It could be like, I don't know, bro, like a clock, bro, or like a clock face or something, and like have that. And it's an entirely different like thing now. Whether or not the audience gets it, you're putting a different filter in your brain, and it adds more how do you say, illusion to your moves. Totally makes sense. I do laser production. Oh, okay, and getting the lasers to beat match is a lot easier. I think the difficulty of the moves is something I still have to think about, and I might be tunneling. I actually, I feel like you gotta dumb down your moves, bro.
There's a lot going on.
There's a lot of like you're straight in business. And I'm just gonna head on over to the clip right now. It's like look at this, bro. Like, you're starting the show like
already in an angle,
form, dude. Right?
Yeah.
You gotta play with your space. You gotta play with your space. Play with more of the audience's peripherals, right? But it's very you're more focused on the technical stuff here, and for the most part, this is like the height. This is the height of your gloving right now, right? This is like the climax, at least pretty close to the level of difficulty that you have probably later on in the show. That there's no ride, right? You're maintaining this level of complexity throughout the entire of your show. Like right here, this section is not that much different than this, right? And then so like as an audience, it's not suspenseful. It's not. I'm kind of just going. I'm looking at it, right? You're doing the moves, but you're not building on the moves. Like, look at that. We're at a cluster form we're at cluster form 29 seconds is high level of tech here, right? So it's like, yeah, just coming up with an easy a level 1, like what does this look like?
So one thing that I just did, and I feel like this is a beneficial thing to do for your own shows for anyone who's recording and they want to like think about what they're not doing in their show. So I just rewatched the whole show at 2 times speed, and the only thing that I had in my head was, do I sing a finger roll, and do I see liquid? And the answer to that question is no. There was
Oh,
zero.
really?
Yes. He had one or two like whip kind of transitions
Yeah.
towards the end of the show, but other than that, there was zero liquid and there were zero finger rolls. And I don't want to be like the older Glover who's like harping on not having finger rolls in a show, because I think everyone has their own preference about what they do and don't want to use in a show. But I think part of that like overloading of tech sequences back to back and like going from form to form with different digits and stuff, it needs to be broken apart by that liquid and by those finger rolls to give that kind of up and down, that push and pull, that suspense, and creating that feeling of like, oh, what's next?
Yes, yes, yes. And like, you know, like I'm like looking at it right now, and like on paper, everything that you're doing, Scott, is high value, but
Yes.
because all of it is high value, it's low value.
Yep.
That's exactly what's happening. It's all high value that there's no contrast in what's actually high value, right? So it's like you have the tools, bro. Like I'm like looking at everything. I'm like, okay, that like you do this one like tut, like where is it? It's like, yeah, this section right here, like 1 minute 3 seconds. It's like,
Like
bro,
transitional tut.
like the whole platforming like depth like type of movement is like all like high level, but when you're doing that every like or at least things of that nature every moment of every time, you lose the value and there's not a level of surprise, right? There's not a level of surprise. You need you need filler moves, bro. One of the very few. Oh, this section right here at like 129, like yeah, 129. This tut like to that like platform, that's crazy, bro. But like you have nothing to like really I mean, that's the highlight. It just highlight after highlight after highlight. How do you make things a highlight, bro? You need the filler.
Yeah.
What up, Lotus? Okay, that should be a pretty easy fix. I just need to chill a little bit. Yeah, and you need to find, how do I say? It's because you're vertical as well. You know, you
Mhm.
don't really
Mhm.
get to. There's a level of depth that you're just not able to do when you're in the vertical. So it's, you know, I can't really fault you for that. But you need to find interesting filler move. Like I mean, well, like, okay, like for instance, like here you're at like a cluster. No, here let's just take something like, let's see, let's say like even in this form, okay, you're doing like a 4 point cluster in that form. Like, oh shit, did my fucking, oh man,
Yeah,
my
yeah,
camera
you,
already.
you went off.
Yeah, no, like okay, so
Just let it cool
basically,
down.
yeah, I'm gonna let it cool down. But how do I say this? You can pause in a form, and Jacob, you mind like showcasing this, like go into like a complex form, like any
Okay.
complex form, like a form, yeah, and then like just move it as a filler, like to use that as a filler to let it breathe. Yes, just anything like that. You see how he's changing his angles? He's like rotating it around and he's breathing. Like that is filler as well. So when I say filler, it doesn't mean to be completely just liquid filler, like
Correct.
whip filler. You could just let the form breathe and like
Yes.
use your space. If you, because not only that, not only is it like is it already just high value, but you're kind of teasing it as well. You're teasing the form. You're letting the audience be like, okay, what is actually happening? You give the
Hmm.
audience time to breathe.
Yeah. Yeah, because and I think that there's definitely like this almost like if someone is watching the show and they don't entirely understand every move that you're doing, if they're not able to then frame by frame your video, they're losing half of the concepts that you're doing because you're going at such a steady pace through them all. And right, and you want like I know Kevin talked about Megasloth earlier and like his kind of
We're just
you
swapping.
come on, I go off. Yeah. Um, he has this very like melodical way of like putting stuff in front of the viewer and making it like understandable, even if it's super complex, both based on his speed control and also based on his presentation. And I think that if you also had like this dichotomy of fast and super slow and then medium speed added to those tech forms along with like what Kevin was saying about letting it breathe, you're almost like opening up the viewer's ability to digest the moves that you're doing and then see how cool they are, right? Because some of the moves me and Kevin saw, some of the transitions were really awesome, but it's like you get a glimpse of it and then as soon as you realize it happened, we're like four more moves ahead already.
Yeah, this brings me to someone had shared it actually pretty recently. Remember the puppet list of infinite theories? You remember that document? Okay, there's an image on there, and I totally forgot about this concept. But it's I think it just plays in my subconscious. But imagine everything on the lens, okay, is like 1 mile per hour, and then like everything on the side is like 15 miles per hour. Okay, so like try implementing that type of like thought process within your show, because if I'm fast here but then like when I'm going closer I give them the form and I give them time to breathe. Like you could be in your
Mm.
connection and then but like when you're closer you give them time to breathe, you let them see the form, right? And it becomes really fun because like sometimes you'll get into like you'll pause, right, and then you'll come closer, you'll get into forms that like you never really like thought about before because you're closer and you're slower, you're paused, right? I think that would be a really good fix actually, like with your show right now, because it's just all gas, bro. Like look at this, like it's all gas. Like if you just paused, went closer, let them appreciate, good. Get into this thing right now, pause, go closer, let them appreciate. Then bro, like that already, that alone, and you don't even have to do anything. That you don't even
Yeah.
have to do anything, bro, and it makes it high value, you know? But I mean, pretty much. I mean, like I'm gonna go ahead and look at the logic real quick. Because I yeah, the logic. Okay, some
There's
moves.
definitely some
There's a
missteps.
lot of missteps actually. Like, uh,
I think there's a lot of like floating
it's
between it's like the connections that I think should be connected are not.
this video was 5 months ago, and I remember watching Sykes' video, a more recent one, and he's gotten a lot better with the floating. So I know,
Sweet.
yeah,
Okay.
I know he's gotten a lot with the floating. Like right here,
Awesome.
like when we're stuck in that. Look at this. Like you're not getting that stick, that stick in your movement right here. Maybe because of the form, actually, because you land here and then now it looks like a misalignment sometimes. Like here you're doing the isolation right here. From look at this like three fingers in the front, right? You're doing the isolation, but then like you do it in like a you're like moving your hand in the diagonal before your thumb goes into the isolation. You're moving too many parts at the same time.
Yeah.
See, and then you meant to do a horizontal angle, so you're moving your whole hand before your thumb isolation. You're moving
So and what I
fast.
call this is like committing to concepts, right? Committing to forms, and that kind of plays hand in hand with what we were just talking about letting some things breathe. But it's also about like if you aren't committing to a certain hand form, then it's almost like you're just letting that concept fly by. And there was a Glover named Slayer. Some people may remember him.
Holy crap!
Great Glover, great guy.
Wow.
Um, and he and me and him worked on this a lot together because he felt that he had this issue of like I'm not committing to my concepts, and I do like a partial concept or whatever, and then I'm immediately like I'm breaking it away and going to something else. And you don't have that problem as far as like breaking away and like resetting to like whips or anything, but I think you do have that problem in the sense of if you're in an angle like this, which is not a normal angle for most people to hit, I want to see you play with that, move around it, and kind of like change
Yeah.
what you're doing with it while still holding this angle rather than the second you get here, like now you're doing this full down and then everything's changing.
Yeah. Just let the form breathe. Yeah. Just play with the angle, right? And yeah, he's constantly changing angles, right? But like it's it's really
It's not bad.
It's not bad.
He's
It's high
he's
level.
executing a lot of it really well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's high. It's high level, but how do you make it better? You just play with you show us the tools. Like in every form, there's a tool,
Yes.
right? But then you're changing. What you're doing is you're changing the tool. You're always changing the tool, and so that will bring another level of like creativity in your show. You're gonna come up with a lot more newer moves. Like you could have like this. This is probably my favorite part of the show right here. Like you go into like that tut that just comes. That
it's
tut,
super cool.
Like if you just use your space, bro. Like if you like got into that, it's illusion, right? It's speed illusion. It's space illusion. Like if you like went into like a tut and you like swiped across the lens, like if you used your space, like in that tech form, right? If in that tech form, just go and use that space. Now you breathe. Go into your tech. Use that space. Breathe, right? I gotta give a shout out to my boy Dynamics. He does like platforming king tuts, like pretty similarly to how you do it. But what I want to see is just more that emphasis towards the camera, and then it's just you go up like 2 levels, bro. 2 levels if you just did that even closer. Here, there's a lingering finger. Here, lingering finger in the ring. Or is that the ring? Or pinky? I think that's a ring.
Kind of relate to this laser production. They often don't let us pop off lasers until the headliner, so there's a bigger pop. Yeah, no, it's great that you have something to like relate it to as far as the basis goes, and I think that relation is a perfect one to make.
And I'm pretty sure, like, it's like there's like a little bit of like visual, like graphic production, right, Scott? Correct me if I'm wrong, but like your light show is like a video clip with no cuts. No cuts. Conceptually, there needs to be more cuts.
Right.
But yeah, I mean you went to school for VFX. Yeah. You're like I don't know, you're trying to composite like an effect like of a smoke, and there's like no cuts, bro. It's one long timeline, one long video clip conceptually. Cut it, bro. Cut it. Change the colors of the clip. Okay, let's move on to our last one. This will be our last one. Do you have the vid? Can you pass it over? I think Will sent it to you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, hold on. Let me see. Yeah, here we go. Pull this up.
You can post it in the chat here.
Yeah, I got you.
Absolutely, bro.
Oh, where's the chat here? Where's the chat?
Oh, the chat's if you highlight your mouse over the right side or on the top, it should say show chat.
All right. Show chat. Okay. Gotcha.
I should change the name to these streams from Simon Cowell to Get Roasted.
No, because our cameras are getting roasted.
No, because like everyone's getting
No,
roasted. But
I know,
yes,
I know,
also
I
our
know.
cameras. Yes, 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 yes. All right, let me go ahead and
All in the name of improvement, man. We love
absolutely,
to push people to the greatest that they can be, right? And I'm not claiming that me or Kevin are the greatest ever and that we can just definitively give you all the answers, but we're here to provide our years of dedication and knowledge to you so that you can use it in the way you see best fits you.
absolutely. Well done, well put. Um, do you have the video up?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Countdown.
Yeah. Three. Oh, fix the quality. 1080. Gotcha, gotcha. All right.
Same.
Three, two, one. Okay, pretty standard intro.
I like the flow.
Yeah, flow is good.
Okay, I feel like we needed to hit that a little bit
Just a little
harder
harder, just a little harder.
because this is like this is an intense song.
Ooh, I like the try. I need to see more commit to the hits.
Yeah.
It looks like
Yeah.
you're not really selling it. You're very delicate with it. Your whips could the placement of the whip could be like way more under. I got a couple feedback on that particular. I like that pull. Right here, you're air tracing. You're not really committed to the line. I mean, you're committed to the line here and there, but you're floating a lot. There isn't a use of macro grid here.
Yeah.
We got a mode change.
Clean mode change. I like it.
It's a lot of filler.
Yeah, I feel like we're resetting into the filler.
Okay, we mode changed for no reason.
It was a little too late. If it wanted to happen, it should have happened right
Yeah.
before that drop hit.
Well, there's not really a change in like anything. It's just a change in color.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need more disciplined lines, more tracing.
I feel like there's a little bit of floating between like the tech positions.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Mode. Show the video, the duo presets. Gotcha.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense for sure.
Okay, I was about to say, bro. We're just changing modes for no reason.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've never seen Will change modes this many times.
That's totally cool. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. So I'm
Get through
gonna
the modes. It was a okay,
yeah, I'm gonna treat it as as if you didn't change the modes. Then is that
Yeah.
fair? Yeah. To treat it like there were no mode changes.
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. So right off the bat, what I get from the beginning is that there's no plan. We're just flowing.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Because we have this intro here. It's not really refined. You're kind of just doing the filler moves, but there's no plan in terms of grid, or there's no plan in terms of pathing. Right? So you can use like pathing as like a motif. And I talk about this all the time. It was did order to duo presets. I should got you. Yeah, so like at the beginning, and there's like a lot of floating, right? So you're very like legato type of movement, Glover, where like so legato is long, staccato is sharp. right?
Hmm.
So like you're very like floaty, flow-esque, right? But sometimes being in that like that consistent state of like floating sometimes can bite you in the butt when it comes down to grid work, because like you might be like going through like the connections here and there, but you're not really like completing it, right? So like tracing the hard lines so you get that like that satisfying like shape and completion, but you're also like you're presenting the illusion of the grid, right? Because in here you're doing like a lot of like especially here, like there's not like really any static lines or isolation, right? And isolations are it puts your light show at like a higher level. Like if you want a higher level
Hmm.
of a light show, like you need that level of isolation somewhere, but there really isn't any one point that's in focus. There's a lot of points. There's a lot of moving around, right?
And I think when I was talking about floating, right, and Will, you have like this kind of pace where we're like on this bounce timer, as I'm gonna call it. It's like a bounce timer, right? And every move we're bouncing, and then we're kind of like changing the shape and the move that we're doing, and then we're bouncing, and then we're coming into a different shape, and then we're bouncing, and we're going into like a small trace, and then we're bouncing into like these kinds of flow shapes and a little bit of this filler. And I think, like Kevin was saying, right, committing to these traces and committing to the shapes that you're in on a static plane, right? Like if we're right here and like I'm committing to all of these traces, and like I'm imagining there's like, this wall in front of me, so I'm not going forward, I'm not coming back, like my hands are kind of locked in this position, and I'm connecting these forms, and I'm staying in these forms, as well as currently I'm not letting my hands kind of come apart. I think that could it could unlock a lot of areas for you as far as where you feel like you're getting too repetitive,
Yeah.
right?
No, go for it.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. So like, one remedy, right, is to maybe you don't have to do like long. You don't have to like force yourself to do like do longer connections because it takes a lot of bandwidth. Right? I would say to like inch your way into like the longer traces or like the longer connections, right? So if you have to do like three traces, so it's like maybe or like three movements, right? It's like 1, 2, 3, move. You could even explode into another form, right? But like commit to this form, 1, 2, 3, move. And then you like transition. You keep that point of contact. You keep it. You try to find an isolation point. Right now, in my mind, it's this point between my pinky, right? So like I stay there, and then I'm imagining the point right there, right? And I'm like staying there. I'm not floating, right? I'm not lingering. I find a point in space, right? So trace, keep that isolation there, then move or move.
Yeah, isolations for
Trace,
sure.
isolation, move. 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 Jigga baby, I need to come see you, and you gotta drill some lessons to me.
Been working a lot on that as well. I've made some improvements since then. I definitely see what y'all are talking about. It's been something I noticed as well. Yeah, man. I mean, it's always great to be self-aware. And I know you said that this is kind of an older video because the last one I've recorded, which is fine. And, just take what we're saying with a grain of salt. Obviously, a couple months in terms of gloving is a lot of time for someone to
Mhm.
develop their style and to find different things to do. But I think also what I would like to see from you is like I want to see you do combos. So the difference between a move and a combo is kind of what Kevin was talking about at the beginning, where he felt like you were coming in with no plan. So if you have a move, right? Okay, and this is the one that me and Toby, well, Toby, of course. Toby came up with a long time ago, and it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? I want you to have these combos where it's like point for point, and it's a combo that you can repeat every time versus getting into a position and then just going where it feels right. And having those kinds of like hard stuck combos will help you get into that point of connection that Kevin was talking about, both with isolations and everything else. And then, you're a more like, you have that old school style because, like you
Yeah, he
said, you have been
does.
gloving for 10 years,
Yeah, he's got
which
that.
means that you came up in a different era than what people are doing now. But I think also in that era, a lot more people were doing these kinds of combos, and they're not so much done anymore, so much as like just having a lot of tech forms, kind of like Scott had going on. But I think having these set pieces that you can pull out of your bag to kind of throw in and then transition out of them from there with whatever feels natural would give you a good basis for trying to figure out how to break away from that like repetitive resetting kind of like using your flow as a crutch because you have great flow. You have
Yeah. Yeah,
you
that's
undeniably you have great flow, and I think breaking yourself of that flow and trying to approach gloving in a more like meticulous and like binary, Kevin talks about there's binary glovers and then there's kind of like free form
like
glovers, and I
abstract
think
image, people who think in like an abstract
yes,
image, yeah.
and I think forcing yourself into that binary style of gloving would take you up like you'd be jumping up
Yeah.
the ladder like four rungs at a
Right,
time.
right. So like I when I started gloving or like for like the first 10 years of gloving, like I would see gloving as like an abstract image, right? Like sometimes I would think like super trippy, like this was like a spaceship. I'm going through space time and there's like leaves that go
Dragon.
dragon. I think of images. That's just naturally how I am. But like there are people, right, who see it as like a binary puzzle, like where they see
Ash.
just the logic and they see just like the lines and just pure shapes that when
Pilgrim.
Pilgrim is one of them. Like when I made that when I started thinking in the realms of like binary, that's where I made like I found this. It's in everybody, bro. Trust me. Like it's in everybody. People they're born and they tend to lean one way, but I wholeheartedly believe that everyone's got both. Just
Yeah,
people tend to go one
it's
direction.
tapping into it.
You gotta
One's
tap into
natural.
it. Yeah, one is natural, and some I know. Yeah, some people are more naturally binary puzzle, right? But some people are naturally both at the same time.
Yeah.
But I'm unsure of what Will actually thinks what he feels like maybe he is. But like for like binary puzzle, right? Like it's just thinking, okay, like if I have like my shape, it's asking yourself again like logical questions. So like if I have myself like this shape, like okay, what if I did it in like a box? What if I follow the pathing in like a box? Like if you want to get into like harder tech, the first thing that I did was I thought about doing my combos in a box, right? So like so you can take what you got, right? Kind of like your flow. You don't gotta get rid of it, right? I would say just use what you already have, and then like try to like imagine. And this is what I meant by it seemed like you didn't have a plan. Is thinking in terms of like space, right? Like you're starting the show, right? Okay, now I'm gonna think about like the box now. I'm gonna do my same moves, but maybe if I got
What's inside the box?
but like I'm gonna do it in a box. You're outlining like the box, right? And then like later on down the line, maybe you can start thinking, okay, I'm gonna do it in like a diamond. I'm gonna do the same thing that I did in a diamond. It's that pathing is only a stepping stone, right? That's the mindset that you need to get into a place where you become more gritty. Because now you're thinking in terms of shapes and you're not free flow, right? Because when you build that understanding of moving in a box, it's just gonna come naturally, bro. Like you're gonna want to naturally move straighter, right? Not really as floaty. I think you guys mentioned I just definitely want to go with the flow, just kind of go where it feels right. Yeah, go where it feels right. Like Jacob pointed out, definitely could benefit more playing. Bro, when you start implementing like boxes and like these static lines, like what might feel right now might change later on. Like when you
Yeah.
feel like that connection, like, and that movement, like, then you might know, like, I don't know, feels right. It's kind of it kind of depends on where you are and like what you're, how do I say this? Like, it kind of depends on how you grew up gloving, right? Like if you
Yep.
grew up like you feel right, like, and then liquid feels right, right? But then like I want you to like really like be critical, like think about it, right? Like if you're trying to create like lines, is like that right, or like is this trace right? Is this trace logical, or like is it, or is doing this trace like kind of like that logical, right? Like it really depends. But then like, yeah, feels right is very subjective. But the moment that
It
you get
is.
like disciplined, like the moment you feel that grid, like those grid lines, it changed my definition of what felt right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, we've talked, me and Kevin have talked a lot with Infinite Andres, and I think we went over some stuff with him, and he immediately was receptive to it in a way that was like, you guys just ruined my gloving. And that's not like not a bad thing. It was just like, he's like, holy shit, like everything that I've done normally for so long now, I can feel that it feels wrong. And like I have all these things that I want to work on and fix and like try to change about my style now.
Yeah, and that's what happens, right? When you kind of, yeah, but it's kind of the same like phenomenon that I had with musicality. Like when I first
Mm.
started gloving, like I thought I had like perfect musicality, bro. Like I thought I had perfect music. I felt so deeply like, yeah, I'm hitting every single thing. But then like when you get older, right? When you get wiser, when you've been in the game for so long, you look back at your old stuff and you're like, man, what the hell was I thinking, bro? Sometimes what feels right isn't actually right sometimes. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And that just takes like experience and just kind of like learning other pieces, obviously. But like, yeah, like just put yourself more into like that box mindset sometimes when you're doing your connections. And I think that's definitely the stepping stone. Because like right here, you're in here at like 46 seconds, right? You've got your connection, right? You're there, trace, but you're like out of it already, right? And then now
Mhm.
you're into more of the filler, right? You're more into the whips and the filler here. Um, what happens after this? Right here, okay, here we go. We're in the tech, and then we're here, and we got that bounce. I know what you mean by that bounce, but you're never really doing any hard contacts, right? So the string is pretty long, actually, right? Like think about it, like from here is like a minute. Okay, this is a pretty long string. Pretty long but then like, okay, how long are we actually in? Okay, 17 seconds. 17 seconds of like a technically like a combination, right? But how often are you like creating boxes and like traveling the grid on every form, right? It's like you're separating each time and you're not really following
Mhm.
the lines. You're not really following the lines on like even like a z axis. A lot of it is x axis, right? But like you're like gliding, you're like moving around, right? And so try traveling like like truthfully, okay? And what I mean by that is like if I'm gonna like do a trace down, then it's a trace down, and I'm not moving. I'm not doing like any secondary move. I'm not. It's a
Mhm.
trace down, and that's it.
That's static.
It's static. Trace down, trace down, trace down, trace down. Right. These are true pathings right here. Right. Same thing when you go all the way right. You're staying true to the unit. You're staying
Yep.
true to the path, and you can keep going, right? You could keep going, and guess what? Everything changes because look at my arm. My arm is from down, my elbow. Okay, it's pointing down. Then when I go up, my elbow is now straight horizontal. It's not this. It's that, right? So if you could learn how to like just travel and imagine when you like change, you trace down, you trace left, hinge, trace up, trace up, trace up, trace right, trace. There's so many steps that you can take to make it more like to add more of that grid. And you could still add your flow to it, no problem. Like you could like
Oh
do
yeah.
trace, and then glide change, right? Trace,
Yes.
then glide change. It's just options, right? It's just different options. So
So, So another big thing that I noticed as I just did it. I did it for everyone. I kind of watched the video in two times speed. Is the same kind of thing we were talking about with Zugzwang. So you have a little bit more of some dynamic play with speed, especially when you're throwing your whips. But I want to have those. I want to have both of those extremes. By the way, Kevin, you just lost your camera.
Yeah.
I want to have both of those extremes coming out, and I don't want to have it just in whips and liquid. I want to see that extreme like bam 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 bam. Like you're going through these concepts and these connections, and you're doing it with gusto and speed, and that's obviously something that takes like practice and everything. But having that extreme, and then also having like this like insanely slow like boom boom, right? Having that juxtaposition of those levels of speed and then mixing in the speed that you use now already is also going to give you this range of motion and adaptability within your show and the moves that you're doing, right? Because sometimes, and I think it's also partially due to the fact that you like to glove to like drum and bass and like house music and stuff that's like very like the tempo is consistent. Um, but being able to have that dichotomy of speeds will kind of it'll allow you to not feel so forced to constantly be moving through your forms. And I feel like your flow is almost forcing you to kind of be in that like I'm constantly moving and I'm flowing and changing where I'm at. I'm switching to liquid and then to finger rolls, right? Like you're almost forcing yourself to not be able to let those concepts breathe and to be able to stick into more of those like true angles that Kevin was talking about.
Sometimes we can be using the flow as a crutch, right? I've said this a couple times before. But like utilizing your flow as a crutch to help you glide because it feels good when you glide and you're kind of effortlessly going through it. I would say limit test.
Yeah.
Like limit test how long can you do your connections? Like how long can you your brain like the amounts like I want you to like overload your brain with all these connections, this discipline, staying, that bandwidth. It's a muscle in your brain. Like being true to that form and stick. It's a muscle, right? And then so like just that's out. That's the biggest thing that I would say after watching this show is just testing yourself, being able to test yourself, be in a connection for as long as you can, man. Without floating. Because I'm going through this show right now. Because yeah, you have something that not a lot of glovers who are starting off nowadays have, and that is that
Yes.
OG flow. It's that Glover flow, bro. Like you've got that, right? And then so you could think about it this way. You're kind of ahead in that aspect today. You know what I mean? You're kind of ahead in that aspect. The new kids nowadays, they got the forms and the connectivity, being able to do it longer. But some of them, they don't got like that OG flow, right? So like for this one, yeah, it's just being more connected. Ever since I heard you say commit, I've been working on exactly that. Absolutely, bro. Yeah, and I did hear you probably, well, this was like September. This is almost a year ago, bro. I'm sure you've.
Oh yeah,
I'm
that's what you're
sure
saying.
you've
It's just the last video he had. So
Yeah, gotcha. Well, I mean, that's pretty much the biggest thing, right? Because then we can talk about logic. You know what I mean? Because right now it's hard to talk about or like to pinpoint certain parts of the show of logic simply because of the stylistic preference. But like once you get to like the point where you are able to just like commit longer, then we can start talking about like the actual logic, right? Now we can start getting to like the nitty-gritty of every single connection, right? But I'm sure you're probably there now at this point. But yeah, we'll see. But I mean, I think that's pretty much it. Do you have anything any last comments on the show?
No, no,
Yeah.
I think we covered most of it pretty well. I
All
think there's
right.
a lot for him to work on right now.
Yeah, I know.
You know, after
Everybody.
everything we said.
Yeah, everybody, or even ourselves included. Yeah,
Oh
man,
yeah, of
I'm
course.
starting to get super like. What am I trying to say? What am I trying? I'm trying to lose this. Yo, this has been a long session, bro.
This has.
Yeah, man. So I think we're gonna pretty much end it right here. Jacob, thank you so
Appreciate
much,
everyone
bro.
for coming.
Absolutely, yeah. Jacob, everybody, yeah, everybody who
Thank you.
submitted, really appreciate you guys. Really hope that you guys learn a thing or two. That will conclude today's stream. You guys have a great rest of your weekend, Jacob. You too.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. If we ever do this in the future, I'm definitely gonna make some noise again. But yeah, you guys take care. Like and subscribe to this channel. Jacob, have a great weekend, brother.
Thank you, sir. You too.
Peace out, guys.
Peace.